Hey, Davina, if you can hear us. Davina.
Yes.
Yeah, you're the one that's, you should maybe mute. We're hearing like a TV or something in the background.
Mute me. Mute.
All right, everybody, we got Ben Kotnik here to do a presentation for us, the 12 months of a year fruit plus top 10 from Ben Kotnik. Thanks for everybody to join us, the San Diego chapter of California Rare Fruit. Sorry for any of the technical difficulties, but we're gonna get it done with Ben's help and all your help. We're gonna get this done and we're gonna enjoy the heck out of it, I think. So we're just gonna go ahead and let Ben have at it and sit back, have a drink or whatever you do and take notes and enjoy Ben. All right, Ben.
Cool, thanks, John. Good evening, everybody. This is definitely a special treat. You're welcoming me into your living rooms, kitchens, garden spaces, offices, etc. It's a little bit different for our club to do it and reach more people in certain respects. So definitely, you know, the wonderful aspects about CRFG are the personal connections. And, you know, while I think in-person connections are fantastic and I look forward to resuming those, I think it's also nice that we have some people from, you know, around the state, around the country, you know, joining in and, you know, participating in our meeting tonight, as we've participated in a couple of the other CRFG chapters in the past and will continue to do so in the future. So tonight's topic is probably one of the most expansive ones that I give a talk on. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Ben Kotnik. With relationship to CRFG, I started out as the vice chairman of the San Diego chapter in probably 10 or 11 years ago or so, on the heels of Tom Del Total. Tom was one of my mentors and is one of my mentors in all of this fruit horticultural stuff. And then I became the chairman for a couple of years or so. I was the ex officio for a couple of years. And so I've been a board member of the San Diego Club for maybe 5 to 6 years, you know, out of the last 10 to 12 or somewhere thereabouts. So I have an appreciation for a lot of the people on this call who have, you know, taken the time to volunteer their time for helping further the club's mission. And of course, in, you know, sort of uncertain times and whatnot, what we're doing is a lot of people are finding solace in their gardens and in getting outside. So I think the relevance of CRFG is still there, definitely there. While there are a lot of online gardening forums and, you know, groups and that sort of thing, I don't think there's really anything else like CRFG that's, you know, been around for 50 plus years now, which is a group of, you know, really knowledgeable folks such as everyone on this call. So with that in mind, I just want to point out that, you know, I mean, I'm a pretty knowledgeable guy about this stuff, but by all means, I don't know all the answers. No one does when it comes to horticulture and trees and plants and that sort of thing. You know, I've definitely learned a ton from my involvement with CRFG. I've also done a lot of self-study, and my academic background is actually is math. And so I like seeing the connections, you know, in nature. I like being able to explain sort of the underlying phenomena, the underlying systems and that sort of a thing. And so with 12 months of fruit here, the presentation, sort of the origins are, is I was actually talking with Jim Neitzel and Tom Del Total about 8 to 10 years ago or so. And, you know, we were just reminiscing about how every seed packet says, hey, plant this after the last frost. And, you know, we just sort of said, well, that doesn't apply to us, obviously. And, you know, it would be great if we had some sort of visual to represent, you know, when things ripen in Southern California, because very little of the literature out there is geared towards us specifically. So this is the graphic that I came up with and that I vetted with other people, you know, around locally. And so here it is. This is essentially what I'm going to talk about tonight. Is I'm going to take you through sort of a year-round harvest. I'm going to talk about each of these fruit tree types for just a short period of time. I'm going to give you my top tips on every single one of them. And those top tips come from, you know, working with, you know, thousands of homeowners across California and, you know, going to our meetings and talking with some of you folks that have informed my opinions over the years. I think I walk a pretty decent line of, you know, the science and the art of gardening and fruit trees and all that stuff. And like I said, no one person has all the answers, and your experience may vary with mine. But what I, you know, talk about has worked for me, and I feel comfortable presenting that in a manner such as this, which is more consumable by a wide audience. You know, so I'm not just somebody who's a keyboard desk jockey at home spouting off on a forum. You know, I'm somebody that has taught at the community college level, been involved with the club and stuff, and I speak at different events and all that. So I feel like I have a responsibility to provide, reasonably authoritative, well received information, and it's not just, out of my orifice, so to speak. So at any rate, here's the graphic. And one of the things that we sort of start talking about here is that when you realize the amount of variety that you can plant in Southern California, then the next question for most of us in suburban or urban landscapes is, hey, how can I plant that much stuff in my space? And so then I go on to the next slide, and I start talking about, and this is going to be the smoothest text that I have on any of these slides. Somebody used the annotation tool here. It would be great if that annotation was able to be removed. Let's see.
Ben,
here.
you're not sharing your screen.
Let's get the.
Ben, you're not sharing your screen. All we see is you.
Oh, I have his screen.
Oh, nope. I'm sharing my screen.
I think most of us can see it.
Yeah, everybody says I see. Oh, I see.
I'll get out
Ben.
the eraser tool. Yeah, get out the.
I couldn't see it until I clicked on see the share screen then.
There we go. Cool. I did some. Okay, cool. So then if you're not seeing, so just a reminder to everybody here, I definitely am sharing my screen.
Weighing in here, we can, Sue and Peter Madsen can see it. It's on the upper right icon above your screen, Ben.
Okay.
If people don't get it.
All right. Well, I hope they get it.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I hope they get it. So thanks for that, guys. Cool. It takes a village, right? So well done. So picking the right nursery tree is just half the battle. You got to provide the right conditions and all that stuff. So it does take a full, complete package to bring all this to fruition. See that? Fruition. It's the first pun of the night, guys. All right. So how do I fit more in my space? Well, the number one thing here that I have is actually, and I don't list any bullets because it's a topic in and of itself, and that's ecologic design, which is founded upon mathematical principles. Certain principles such as increasing surface area through mounds and depressions, and going with circular type shapes versus linear shapes, those sorts of things. So just the simple rules of mathematics will help us be able to plant more things in our space versus less. I have a cool blog post on that if you want to search surface area and Ben Kotnik, you'll get a blog post that I wrote on that with some cool pictures. For rootstocks though, you can choose dwarfing rootstocks if you're really looking to pack things in. If you have a heavy clay soil though, I generally recommend planting on a more full-size type rootstock or full-size tree, just because I'd rather sign up for a little bit of pruning and have a little more gratification with growth rather than going with something that's going to be very dwarfing and sort of wimpy.
Landscape has enjoyed it and they've always wanted to go out again. So
thank you. So here are some rootstocks. For apples, I'm starting to like sprout free quite a bit. M111 is up there in terms of ones that I like. Stone fruits, Nemagard's probably my favorite. Level is going to be a pretty large, full size, peach tree or peach rootstock. And there's others. Citation's okay. Citation tends to sucker for me. It doesn't for other people. We've done a fair amount of work on the Mariana 2624 with the club. It does pretty well. That's a nice, reasonably dwarfing rootstock. I don't recommend the St. Julians. They just don't do anything. They just sit there and just sort of languish and don't grow. So citrus, you're not going to necessarily know exactly what citrus rootstock you're on, but most of the time it's carrizo or some sort of sour orange, trefoil orange, and those will impart some sort of dwarfing characteristic oftentimes. And then there aren't dwarfing characteristics, or there aren't dwarfing rootstocks rather for these other ones here. Just some varieties tend to be smaller or larger than others. With respect to pruning and training, I'm not the biggest summer pruning fan. I mean, I think you should be able to prune a little bit year round. That doesn't really matter, but there is some nuance to it. And just, for what it's worth, fruit tree pruning is not part of the required curriculum to become a certified arborist. So although the refrain of like, hey, hire a certified arborist is a good thing that I support, but I do want to just point out that some of the nuances of fruit trees, there's sort of like a shadow community of arborists, that really understand fruit trees. So just keeping that in mind. But pruning is really important. In terms of cultural practices, I think proper pruning techniques are they're the they're the #1 cultural practice for you to have. Aside from right plant, right place type stuff, proper pruning is the way to go. Ahead of fertilization, probably still behind irrigation because water is probably more important, but pruning is way up there on the cultural management practices. So in terms of rootstocks and where to purchase, our club has purchased apple and stone fruit rootstocks from some of the Oregon-based nurseries for quite a long time now. So those nurseries are going to be like Willamette Nursery, Copenhagen, and then if you're in a little bit of a bind, Lawyer's Nursery is one to go to. They tend to be a little bit more expensive. They have more stock, a little bit more available sometimes. For citrus, I'm not sure. John Rogers placed an order recently from our club for citrus rootstock.
Yeah.
I tend to not really work with citrus just because of the quarantine stuff. But those are some of the options there. And then, Laverne will sell you some avocado and cherimoya rootstock if you ask them. But the safest way for more of the subtropical stuff is really just to grow your own seedlings, and it's relatively easy to do. And I'd rather have a taprooted plant that's in my ground if I have the option. So that's just the question there from John McNeil in the chat. So I want to draw everyone's attention to, you do have a chat function. So for me, I think it was next to, for me, it's on, I don't know where it's on the more. If you hit the 3 dots where it says more, there is a chat feature. And so you can definitely type in your questions, and I have that up on one of my screens so I can monitor that as we go. I want to get back to the main program here, though. I'm going to talk a little bit about multi-grafted trees and their ability to add more variety to you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, actually, whoever that is. Yeah, I can hear you, Janice. I hear you. Hi there. Cool. Hi, kiddos. Hey, thanks to all the kiddos for tuning in. You guys are great. Hi, Sammy. Hi, Ryan. Hi, G. Daddy and Uncle Ben loves you. So other things to do is get more return on your investment, right? So return on investment in the plant world is sometimes referred to as stacking functions. And so stacking functions means choosing something that not only tastes great, that you're interested in growing. I recommend people plant stuff that, #1, that you want to eat. #2, that you can grow something that's superior in your own yard versus what you can get in the store. And then, of course, grow things that are expensive, because you want to get something that's of better quality and that saves you money, that is not available anywhere else. And, the old adage of what's my favorite fruit? It's the one that's ripe from my own yard right now. So, plant those trees and that sort of thing, but plant things that do different things for you. As I'll go on tonight, you'll understand that I really like the cultural and historic aspects of fruit trees and plants. That's something that's always been a calling to me, to help preserve the work of the people that have come before me and that sort of a thing. And I also, espouse the philosophy of planting things in the front yard and encouraging sharing and swapping with your neighbors and that sort of a thing. And maybe somebody can, watch your kids or your grandkids for a couple hours, and you can give them fruit in exchange. And, especially with the way the economy is these days and stuff. I mean, the old barter economy is a good one to sort of revive from time to time. So let's keep moving forward with the with the presentation. And there we go. So yeah, I'm going to talk just briefly about multi-grafting. I prefer multi-grafting to multiple trees in the same hole in general. And people on this call, being CRFG folks, that that's something that's within your reach. A lot of the folks on this call know how to graft or are learning how to graft. So I just recommend going with the denser spacing rather than literally putting things in the same hole. And so just to, highlight that, this is from the Dave Wilson website, which is one of the big advocates for the multiple trees in the same hole concept. And just, it says right here, the way to maximize the day's sales is to maximize the sale to each customer, but without being pushy. So, multiple trees in the same hole is a vehicle to get you to buy more stuff. In certain settings, it's a good technique. For folks on this call, you could probably pull it off more than the general public, but I see more of these trees fail, in the general public than survive and thrive. It's usually by about the 3 or 4 year mark, it's an out of control mess, and the trees have diseases, and we end up having to make some sort of tough decisions from time to time. So just presenting that for your awareness and consideration. I also like to convert over the ornamental plum, the red leaf plum trees. That's a pretty typical service of mine. So here's one that has 5 different cultivars on it, and of course you're going to get different colored flowers, different fruits, extended harvests, all that sort of thing. You know, and then sometimes you have that one tree that you just end up stashing your cultivars on for preservation purposes. You know, this is one of mine here that, you know, was, you know, it's about 13 on 1. Of course, you know, there's Joe Real who's up to 200 or 250 or 300 or whatever ridiculous number on a tree of his up in the Sacramento area. You know, here's one that I just sort of keep some cultivars close by that work really well in our area. You know, here it is. It's, you know, not the best picture here, but, you know, it grows out after, you know, sort of being top worked a bit. You can graft on pomegranates too. So a 5-on-1 pomegranate tree with a lot of unique things, you know, good way to go. And mulberry. So I don't know if Frank happened to join on, but you know, Frank Habitler from our club, he's really known for his mulberries. So over the course of several years, I created the Frank tribute tree. And this is the tree that's, you know, it's in a tall tree pot right here. And now it's in the ground, and it's actually just outside my office right over here. So I can actually look at that tree from my office all the time, and it's looking really lovely right now at this time of year, as are most mulberries. Cool. So let's see here. Number of varieties. So yeah, is there a limit besides maintenance to the number of varieties that you can graft to citrus, stone fruit, etc.? No, there's absolutely no limit. You know, there's no limit, but there is a diminishing returns to scale type of concept, and there's a maximum recommendation. I think 3 to 4 or 5 is a good number. So why don't I, you know, great segue into my next slide here. When you are multi-grafting, there's a lot of, you know, there's some classic beginner type mistakes. Number one mistake is not matching sort of vigor. You know, having a really strong aggressive variety paired with a very wimpy variety. For stone fruits and stuff, that basically equates to chill for the most part. Not entirely, but you know, you need to match chill hours. Some folks will tell you that chill hours don't matter. I'm not part of that camp. Because I've seen the results firsthand. We could talk a little bit more about that. Some of the recent trials about looking at chill hours at the South Coast Station, for example, their criteria is simply, does it fruit? Does the tree fruit? It's not how much fruit it is. It's not how good the fruit is or anything like that. So, you know, depending on data, right, data can be manipulated to, you know, come up with whatever, you know, result you'd like to have. So I'm in the camp of where chill hours do matter. You know, I had a Honeycrisp apple here in my yard in suburban San Diego for several years. It would break dormancy in August, and I eventually, you know, shipped it up the hill and gave it to our buddy Dave Yates, you know, who gets a little bit more chill on one spot of his property. So I recommend, for your question, Carlos, thanks for joining us and typing that in the chat. I really appreciate it. You keep it to about 3 varieties is good. You know, 3, 4, maybe 5. You know, more than that gets to be challenging. And I definitely recommend, so when you're doing multi-grafts, you put them as low and as close to the center of the tree as you possibly can. The reason being is that then it can become a more major branch on your tree. So classic beginner mistakes are not matching vigor and grafting at the periphery of the tree. That's fine if you're looking to just, you know, put that stick on a tree and preserve it till next year until you have a better situation for it. But if you really want a bona fide multi-grafted or multi-budded tree, then you graft low and central on the tree. And the radial pattern is very easy to implement. It looks like spokes on a bike. And so that's, you know, what I did here on you know, the ornamental plum tree. It's a radial pattern. It's easy. Each branch that's on that tree, I won't let any other branches go. The 5 branches on that tree are 5 different cultivars. It's easy to manage in that manner. Hope that makes sense. Okay, cool. Now we're going to get into actually the heart of tonight's talk. And the heart of tonight's talk is, you know, 12 months year-round fruit planting and all that. So, you know, most commercial folks will want to harvest their orchards, plants, you know, 1 time a year, maybe twice, you know, and put a fat check in their pocket so that they can send their kids to school and that sort of thing. Homeowners have a different set of criteria and, you know, different needs. So the needs of most homeowners is they want that extended, prolonged harvest, and so they can, you know, go out and ideally select something fresh from their yard every single day of the year. And by all means, that is possible, okay? You can also pick, I mean, just if you went with like a Valencia orange tree, you know, Meyer lemon, you know, some apples and avocados, you know, those are fruits that hang long on the tree. So, you know, with a handful, you know, 5, 10 trees or something like that, you can definitely be able to go out to your yard and pick something fresh every single day of the year. So I start out with the fall harvest. The fall harvest is pretty amazing overall. You know, for me, it's passion fruit, mangoes, apples, and I'm not sure if there's anything else in there in this particular picture, but you know, there it is. So let's go ahead, see if we can, Amy, if you could mute, that would be helpful, thanks. And here's a nice picture of some citrus at the State Historic Park up in Riverside. once things are back open again and stuff, folks should consider going to do that as a field trip. It's a really good visit.
What's going on?
So let's go ahead and take a look here. So citrus, obviously, there's a ton of variety out there. The hot time for citrus is in the winter for the most part, but you can have citrus very close to year-round. In fact, in my graphic, I do depict it as being fully year-round because I do eat some gold nugget. I've eaten gold nugget mandarin in September, for example, and it's definitely not at its peak ripeness. But tangerines are my favorite citrus, so I go with either Satsuma or a Kishu for a very early season, varietal cultivar. And then I go with a Pixie for my mid-season, and then I go with a Gold Nugget for my late. I also have a Tahoe Gold in the mix and stuff too, but just, having a few different varieties of your favorite things, then all of a sudden you can really extend that harvest. I don't do multi-grafted citrus just because, again, I don't work with citrus propagating it because, we've been in the quarantine for so long. I just don't, I just don't deal with the regulations and stuff. And, of course I want to be a responsible person, so I don't do it. Okay. So then we talk about, sort of my top tips for working with citrus. And, in San Diego and Orange County, Southern California, obviously hotbeds for citrus. So number one thing for me is allowing airflow and sunlight to enter the center of the tree. This works in, a couple different big levers that this, pulls on for you. Number one is it's going to decrease pretty much all of your pest issues. With citrus trees in particular, amongst with other ones, you tend to not have just one pest. They sort of all come or they all go. And with citrus, it really comes back to, airflow, entering into the center of the tree and not maintaining too dense of a canopy or periphery of the tree. And, my claim that it increases yields is as follows, that if I start to allow sunlight to penetrate to the inside of the interior of the tree, I'm also going to get more photosynthesis. I'm going to have growth. I'm not going to have dieback in the interior part of the tree. And then therefore, I'm also going to have fruit. So by maintaining, by selectively opening the canopy, by allowing air and sunlight to penetrate towards the center of the tree, you're going to have that decreased pest pressure, a lot less work on your hands in terms of managing pests. And you're going to increase your yields because you're getting growth throughout the entire volume of the tree, not just at the periphery. The sunburn can be an issue with citrus as well as many other plants and trees. If the sun isn't shining and you're trying to orient yourself to where south is on a property, just look for where the sunburn damage is on the bark of the tree. If you do decide to treat with a paint application, which is the sort of common protocol, if the tree isn't leafed out or placed in a way that you can protect it from the sun otherwise, and you go with an interior flat latex paint mixed 50-50 with water, something light in color. It doesn't need to be white, but something light in color would be generally the way to go for that. I generally suggest pruning citrus, at or just right after harvest. The times that so we're starting to have leaf miner a lot more often, and leaf miner produces the, they lay, so it's a very small moth. It lays eggs in and on the leaves of citrus, and then the larvae, end up eating their way out of the leaf, leaving the little tracks and stuff, and then the leaves become sort of crinkled and deformed and whatnot. So that's starting to get worse and worse and worse. It's not really a big problem though, honestly. So don't freak out about it. It's similar to like peach leaf curl. Like, hey, you've got a problem, but you really can't do anything about it. Just deal with it later. And I will tell you about peach leaf curl when we get to stone fruit. But with leaf miner though, my typical recommendation on leaf miner is just stop pruning about now. Coming into leading into about May-ish time frame. I don't like to prune citrus. Starting from about May through about the end of August. Just because the traditional cycle that we've had for leaf miner is they lay their eggs in June, and they like the tender new growth. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to decrease tender new growth in about the June timeframe. But with our global climate changing stuff, we're starting to see like a longer lifespan or multiple waves of leaf miners. So I'm starting to see leaf miner damage more throughout the year. But there isn't a really great control for it. Just deal with it and don't cut off the leaves because you're just going to encourage, another growth flush, which then produces, young, tender green leaves, which is what is desirable and what they want. So anyway, that's what I got for citrus. Chantal, you said to repeat, please. I'm not sure what I was talking about. So if you just put it in the chat, I'll be glad to revisit whatever it is that I was talking about. The citrus varieties for early, mid, and late harvest. Got it. Okay. So for tangerines, mandarins, being my favorite citrus. So, the earliest ones, Kishu and Satsuma are very early. Satsuma is the sort of most popular backyard citrus, tangerine for a very good reason. It's delicious. basically seedless. It's tried and true. It's a total winner, right? Kishu is also is perhaps my favorite citrus of all. It's super sweet. It's a little fruit that's about the size of a golf ball, sometimes smaller. No seeds. Easy to peel. It's like candy. So it's a really, really delicious fruit. So those are very, very early. And then my Pixie tends to be ripe, about now. Sort of mid-spring, something like that. Tahoe Gold for me, along with the other Gold series, Shasta Gold, Yosemite Golds and stuff, tend to be right for me about now as well too. What we're in April, so starting about March. It's been about a month now that I've had some action on those trees. And then for me, Gold Nugget is my late season one. So Gold Nugget for me comes in towards May, June, and if you're patient, it can last all the way through the summer. Peak ripeness is typically about June for me. Your results will vary depending on where you are. And I've definitely seen Gold Nugget mandarins in the stores in February as well. And, I'm not sure where they're coming from, but they're not coming from my yard. They're coming from somewhere. So thanks for your question, Chantal. And I hope I revisited that appropriately for you. Again, you can type in the chat whatever you got. I'll be happy to address it if I can. From there, we move on to cherimoyas. And I see some of you guys were actually on the talk. I gave a dedicated talk on cherimoyas last week to the Orange County chapter. So thanks to the Orange County folks who had me out for that one. And really, honestly, it's through your member, Isabel Barkman, that I really learned. I attribute Isabel as probably like the #1, conduit for me to learn about cherimoya, honestly. So lots of different, cherimoya sizes and shapes. Here's the picture of me. I'm at Nino's Orchard here with Ronnie and with Lena. And so those are probably a couple Fortunas there. I mean, Fortuna is an amazing fruit. It ships really well because it doesn't have any protuberances, for example, right? Meaning it's smooth for the most part on the outside. So cherimoya is an amazing fruit. This one here, actually, I'm pretty sure this is actually, I'm not going to say it, actually. I'm not confident, actually, after all. So cherimoyas, depending on what pollinates them, there's a lot of variation in terms of what the fruits look like. So if you show if you show a picture of a cherimoya or any annona fruit for that matter, and you say, hey, what is this? It's really, really hard to tell. There's a few that you can sort of tell with a little more reliability, but it's difficult at best. Not the best picture of the inside of a fruit, but it's really more white. There's a little bit of a yellow sheen on this one for whatever reason. I had better pictures in my cherimoya talk last week. So with cherimoyas, I think the theme here is that they don't grow in that many places in the world. And so for that reason, I think it sort of behooves us to give a hand or give a shot at growing them. They are grown commercially in the Santa Barbara, Ventura County area. And then, Nino, who's in North County, San Diego, he grows them commercially. The way that he does it, though, is he grows cultivars that typically don't have the protuberances, which means they ship a little bit better. And he ships them in flat rate shipping boxes. And he typically is getting a premium price of about $6 a pound. How he does that is by producing a superior fruit, superior genetics. He also produces superior fruit that's early in the season, and that's through his rigorous hand pollination schedule. So that is the one, quote unquote, drawback to cherimoyas is that they do best with hand pollination. And like I said last week, people talk about which cultivars are self-pollinating. Well, the answer, in my opinion, which is shared by, Jim Neitzel and other folks of, his stature, is that it's really the environmental conditions that dictate natural pollination. It's not the cultivar itself. So you can read on the slide here, just 3 bullets. That's a nice, good number, for folks to read off the slide. You'll notice I don't, typically read my slides unless, there's something I really want to emphasize. So I'll emphasize bullet number 1 on the slide right here, which is, maintain that sort of modified central leader umbrella, lollipop type shape. It helps to keep moisture or humidity in the canopy, which extends or prolongs the life of each flower, which means you're extending the amount of time that they're available for natural pollination to occur. So that's my quick little top tips on cherimoya. From here we go into blueberries, and I'll just pause on my sip of water. Thanks to the Master Gardeners of San Diego County for this nice water bottle. I appreciate it. And so now we'll go into blueberries. If you're not growing blueberries, you probably should be. Blueberries, you keep them in a pot. And so, anyone can grow blueberries, as long as you got a little bit of sun, you got a space to put a pot. And, blueberries are completely delicious. And, it's one of those ones where, yes, you can buy blueberries in a store, of course, but what you're going to produce at home is going to be far superior. with cherimoyas and stuff. You can buy them in the store a little bit, but it's scattered at best. You can go to farmers markets and stuff, but they're going to be expensive and all that. So, and they don't ship well, of course. That's why they're not going to be a commercial, widely commercially viable fruit, at least. But blueberries, growing them at home, you're going to produce a superior fruit. And there really is nothing as cute or wonderful as watching a child pick blueberries off the bush and just pop them into their mouth and put a smile on their face. A lot of our tree-based fruit, is not accessible to small kids. A blueberry bush that sits in a pot is accessible to kids to harvest. And, for my nieces and or nephews that are on this call, we hope you keep coming by to, pick those blueberries. I grow them, for us, but also for you, because it brings me satisfaction and pleasure to see you eat them, and know where your food comes from and put a smile on your face by putting that deliciousness into your belly. So we grow southern highbush and rabbit-eye types. Southern highbush as opposed to northern highbush, which are going to be the higher chill type cultivars. Some of my favorites are just South Moon Star, O'Neill. I also throw a Snow Chaser into that mix. And so Snow Chaser has been my earliest. Oh, by the way, I'm wearing my shirt tonight too. Check it out, San Diego chapter. Thanks, Tammy. So with Snow Chaser, I was eating blueberries in January last year, January 2019. So my harvest last year was unbelievable. From January 2019 through basically June was the main harvest. This year, my harvest is just getting underway, and so for whatever reason, just a lot of variability this year. My blueberries are much later than typical. So we'll see how it all works here. And some people sort of poo-poo Misty, as being a little insipid or whatever, but you're not eating the same Misty as I am, apparently, because, Misty to me is still a really good fruit. It's not in my top echelon or anything for taste, but it's the most prolific. So if you want a lot of berries, then Misty is a good one, and it's sort of the most prevalent one out there, and there are others too. So, blueberries, I'll show you my top tips here in just a second. But, here's, some nice blueberries that I grow in pots in the backyard. Nice, big, fruit set on them, really healthy plants, bushes. Of course, when you see them start, these are starting to get ripe here. So when you see the little bit of purple, it's still gonna be very tart. And clearly, when it's, in this green pale color, it's definitely not ripe at all. So as it starts to get a little darker purple into here, that's when it's time to pick, and that's when you're gonna have a great favorite, eating it out of hand. So cool. Got it. Best sources for blueberries. I sometimes don't like to divulge this type of thing, Jill, in such a public forum because I need to keep some of my secrets out there. But here's where I'll put a plug in for for Grangettos actually. So Grangettos is where I go in January and February because they come in. They have plants there that are in tall tree pots, and they sell them for only $26. So if you go to the normal garden type store, you're going to get a number 2 pot, and they're going to charge you $13, $14, $15 and stuff. And you're not going to get fruit you might get a few fruit, but you're not going to get fruit for several years. Blueberries grow pretty slowly, honestly, in my experience. So those plants that Grangettos is selling at $26, those are about 10-year-old plants from cutting. And so I'd rather spend my $26 and then wait years. So I'll do money versus time in that case. So the secret is out of the bag. Once I bring them home, though, I put them in a different pot, right? So they're growing them in a tall tree pot to save space in the nursery setting. They're also going to be fertigating to keep the acidity down. So the mix that they're in is not going to be what you want them to be in, for most of us that are, not as intensive with our care, let's say. So, I put them then into at least a number 15. A number 15 is the smallest pot that I put a blueberry in as its, somewhat permanent home. And so, some pretty fall foliage here. And these are still showing in a number 15. But the pots that I prefer using are really large. I use some nice ceramic type pots, terracotta ceramic pots. And they're more in the 25 to 30 gallon type variety, somewhere thereabouts. So center shade is another debated topic with blueberries. So, we have the top tips slide coming up here in just a second, but about 2/3 sun is what I found works the best. Remember that blueberries are grown in the wild as an understory plant. They're in the southeast, portion of the U.S. And so, you're trying to replicate that where they don't get a lot of, very direct hot sun, but they're going to get enough sun so that they develop the sugars and the flavor, and you get, you're balancing photosynthesis with, drying out and getting burned. So, here's a harvest from a few years ago, just showing sort of some relative sizing and, just a little bit more there. So sunshine blue, sharp blue, and misty that particular year. There we go. I work out of a shed that's in my backyard. That's my office. And I think I did get mosquito there. So that's what that was there. And then in terms of cross-pollination and stuff, so John, thanks for bringing that up. The general recommendation is, to have more rather than less. But I definitely see people with single bushes having pretty good harvests. For me, though, I can't totally comment on that because in my yard I have easily a dozen bushes, if not more. And so my fruit set is pretty good and copious. So here are the top tips for blueberries. Keep in containers or a dedicated raised bed. Number one, back when I was a little, when I first got started, I have a pretty green thumb. I've been unsuccessful at growing very few things. So, I had a green sapote that finally kicked the dust on me, last year when we had some really intense heat in August and stuff. But I've been pretty successful at most things. Me being a little, having a little hubris or whatever, I threw, 10 blueberry bushes in the ground, and I heavily amended with peat moss and stuff. I did all the things that, I sort of should or could do. And I ended up pulling them out of the ground after a year just because they just, they weren't performing very well. So they definitely did get better once I put them back into containers. But now I just keep them all in containers. And that's the same advice that, Tom Dohatal and others give. So I'm very confident in providing this advice to you. The easy version for a potting mix is just go purchase a product that's acidic potting mix, for azaleas, camellias, rhododendrons, that sort of plant. A more moderate mix if you want, if you want to, play a mixologist a little bit more, would be to do 80% peat moss and then 20% cactus mix. Add in an acid-loving fertilizer into that mix as well, which I don't count towards the volume. That's a chemical addition, that's designed to adjust the pH and the chemistry for the most part. The more elaborate version, because sometimes we need to go more elaborate because more is better oftentimes, right? So I go with 80% peat, 10% perlite, 5% worm castings, 5% compost, and then add an acid-loving fertilizer on top of that. Oh, that was the appropriate response of geez. But hey, I've taught soils at the local college for almost a decade, so I enjoy mixing soils, and that's sort of how I got my start in nursery operations, was mixing up soils for propagation and stuff. So there's an element of enjoying throwing some stuff in a wheelbarrow, or something a little bit larger, and mixing it up. And so I enjoy doing that. I enjoy using my own compost and my own worm casting. So with that one there, though, it works out really well because I'm using what is the equivalent of about a number 25 pot or a number 30 pot. So if I use 5 pots to keep myself honest with the ratios, I do 4 pots of peat, and so I'm using number 5 pots for me anyway. One that has half perlite and then a quarter compost and a quarter castings. You mix that all together, and then the size of the root ball rounds that out to get us up to like about a number 30 type size pot. For me, the pots that I use. So cool. So blueberry, looks like I'm all caught up on the chat. Again, you can keep throwing stuff in the chat if you'd like. So moving on to loquats. Loquats are, one of those bulletproof, hardy trees out there. They can tend to get sort of on the bigger side. So I understand if you think that you may not have the room for it and all that. There is merit to that. They do want to become some larger trees and stuff. Some of our old time members, I forget their names, but they're out on Dehesa Road here in San Diego. The largest loquat tree I've ever seen. It was a triple grafted 3 trunk tree. And this is, and it's the inspiration of CRFG, right? Is seeing a loquat tree that's easily 50 years old, that has 3 individual trunks that are the size of my torso. I'm a huge guy. And so, sometimes I describe, a trunk being, the size of a wrist, an arm, a leg, or whatever, but it's rare that I describe a trunk being the size of my torso and body. And so there was this one tree out on Dehesa Road in El Cajon, 3 different cultivars, a loquat, and it was just a massive and amazingly beautiful tree. And as you would probably guess, the person that got me, into loquats at all was our buddy Big Jim. And so it was at the planning stage of my yard, and I sort of told Jim, and I have like a big suburban lot here in San Diego, and I'll tell you about my moving plans.
We lost you, Ben.
Where'd he go? Did you mute him, John?
Oh, maybe.
Go to his name. Go to his name. No, he was at the top. It's alphabetical. Ben, right there. Unmute him.
Oh.
Right there.
Fang, Brian Lavin, other people are helping to preserve some of that stuff. Also, Val, thanks for coming by the other day to harvest some wood so that you can get it on your trees and stuff. So really appreciate everybody who's going the extra effort to try to preserve some of that stuff. So with loquats though, basically a bulletproof tree, a little bit larger from time to time. They do multi-graft pretty easily though, so that might be a mitigating factors that if you're going to have a bigger tree, well, at least you're going to have multiple fruits on them. There is some variation in the harvest time. So right now, my main tree is a 3 graft. I've got Singular, Espana, and China Doll on it. And Singular is the earliest. Espana is coming in, pretty hot right now. It's not ripe yet. Probably will be in another month or so. And then China Doll for me is after that. So anyway, loquats. And then I'm going to just segue into mulberries here. I didn't really have mulberries growing up. I wasn't that familiar with them. It was once I became an adult, I became a little more familiar with the mulberry. And I do this every time I talk about mulberries. So if you've seen me talk before, I know you've seen this. But there is some new stuff every time I give the talk, and I update everything at least annually or so. But this one is a throwback to what I've always done. So the shelf life of the mulberry, here it is, dramatic reenactment. Okay, here I am picking the fruit, and that's it, right? So in my opinion, pretty hard to preserve mulberries. When they're ripe, they're ready to eat. And exactly now is pretty much the time. Mulberries are coming in. If they're not in now, then they're coming in reasonably soon for the most part. Grafting loquat and stuff now, you can graft loquat any time of year that you have a good piece of sign wood that's ready to push growth. So it's not the best time. It would have been, a really good time would have been probably a few months ago, and then also post-harvest is the time that Jim would always do it. So, another month or so, something like that. But, Val, one of our CRFG members, came by yesterday, the day before, and grabbed some wood. And, I just made sure that I grabbed wood that had, viable, leaf nodes available to grow. So, yep. Okay. And then do white mulberries to avoid staining. What Frank does in his property, though, is he throws down like a plastic tarp around his tree during the fruiting time of year. And so that helps him just, he can like shake the tree and they fall to the ground and eat them off the ground, and also just, protects. So here's a slide showing you a few different mulberries. And it took, sometimes you have those mental blocks with various things. And so one of the things that I, had a mental block with was remembering which is the Persian mulberry and which is the Pakistani mulberry. It was just one of those mental blocks. And so I finally figured out, I said, aha, Pakistani is a longer word than Persian. So therefore the berries are longer than Persian mulberries as well. So at any rate though here, so we've got, the Pakistani at the top here, longer ones. The Persian ones look a little bit more like a blackberry, raspberry type, fruit. And then here's Frank's white, which is, probably, is going to be some sort of lineage of Pakistani. I'm not the expert on the origins of mulberries, so, don't quote me on all that. But at any rate, these are 3 out of 5 sort of, well-known varieties from Frank. And, this plate, this is actually on my my countertop, I can tell. And so Frank would have given me a plate of these a long time ago. And that's one of the joys of CRFG, right? It's just the generosity of our group. So, if you have trees and fruit and stuff, just letting you know that circle sort of is coming complete. So people like, Frank, Tom, Jim, Bob Holsinger, Mark Bayless, others and stuff, you guys have all shared with me. And so this is like, this is seriously, you guys were planting seeds, and now I'm, here's the harvest, right? Trying to share what I've learned on your shoulders. So some top tips here is that they tend to be larger trees, most, about 15 to 20 feet typically. It is a good candidate for multi-grafting. So if you want to have, just one tree, you could easily throw, 2, 3, 4, 5 things on it or more. In general, I like to prune it reasonably soon after defoliating, like right when they first lose their leaves, just because the sap will get going a little bit later on. Not mandatory, but just a preference. They have pretty aggressive roots. The roots will find their own water. So the mulberry is the example of a tree that I think that is drought tolerant, but is not low water use. So again, wrap your head around that one. It's drought tolerant, but not low water use, meaning that it has a pretty extensive root system. It finds its own water, and they go where they want to go. I don't believe them to be, a damaging root, though. I mean, they would clearly find, if you have like septic lines or French drain lines, they'll find that for sure. But I don't think they're going to heave sidewalks or anything of that sort. If you are low on space, then Black Beauty Persian mulberry is probably the one to go with. I'm not aware of any other, quote unquote dwarfing varieties. If you throw it in the chat there, if you know some other sort of smaller varieties, go ahead and please add to our general knowledge here. But the other option for you is to go with a weeping variety, right? And that can be fun. So if you wanted to do so cool. So Casper Taster, yep, stays small and it's really good. Thanks, Uli, for that. And a weeping tree form. So the one that I'm familiar with is Tease Weeping Mulberry. That's the one that we've had at the college for years. And so with that one though, you just graft it high and then just let it cascade. And it's a beautiful tree. And whatever height you graft it at, that's basically going to be the height of the tree. So that's mulberries for you. Thanks for chiming in on a couple. Thanks, Kathy, for also adding to the body of knowledge that you've been having mulberries since February. Your trees were leafing out a little bit before mine. Grapes, grapes are definitely gaining popularity in California. They've been popular for quite a long time. And there's generally two categories: table grapes, winemaking grapes, that sort of a thing. And on one of the podcasts that I was featured on a long time ago, I told the story of when I sort of really got interested in growing some grapes was when I was on a mountain bike ride in the summertime, in August or somewhere thereabouts, and it was hot. And a friend passed off some grapes to me as like that was their snack that they had in their little backpack and stuff. And I just said, wow, like that's what I needed. I needed water and I needed a little jolt of sugar and stuff. And I said, cool. Like it was just one of those taste eating experiences that stuck with me, and it got me more interested in grapes. So grapes can somewhat thrive on neglect. Some water will help them produce better fruit. But again, it's if you overwater, you don't get a sweet of a fruit, and they tend to be ripe for you into the summertime and into the fall. And there's hundreds of great varieties out there. So we're thankful for people like Mark Miner, who's becoming a more active member of our group down here. Who's taking on some more of the genetic stuff. And I forget the gentleman's name. It was Lon Rumgren. Lon something or another. I forget the last name here, but he was the sort of old timer CRFG who's not around anymore. So again, it's all the work of the people before us that have really allowed us to have the great experiences that we do now. So yeah, I love it, Joel. Exactly. So plant things near paths. I don't talk about zones and design so much in this talk, but definitely things that have extended harvests. Things that you like to look at, put those close to where you frequent in your zone 1, in your planting areas and stuff. The things that have shorter harvests and stuff, you can plant those a little bit farther out, because then you're only committing to walk to the nether region of your property for that short, 1 to 2 or maybe 3 week harvest period. So like a Valencia orange tree is a good one to put near the house, because you can walk out and grab your 6 oranges and make juice for the family, and then you can keep doing that for literally months on end if you choose to. Cool. All right, somebody whipped out the annotation tool. I am going to get my eraser back out. There we go. Cool. Look at that. All right. Okay, so white sapotes. Bob Holsinger and Mark Bayless, I have really fond memories of us going to Bob Chambers' place north of Fallbrook and checking out his white sapote trees. Really good formative experiences, when the fruit bud, sort of bit me and everything. And so this is from that grove, and you can see the copious fruit set on here. White sapotes are one of the sweetest fruits that we can grow, period. And for that reason, I think they're a little bit underappreciated, definitely underappreciated in the general public's perspective and opinion. Those of us in CRFG are well aware of course. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple pictures of it then. I just got rid of my eraser tool. So now here we are. So the fruit is, yellow or green when it's ripe. It's about baseball size typically, not as big as softball, but about baseball size. And what I think the main holdup for a lot of people with white sapotes is, it's not the most aesthetic tree all the time. And also what to do with all the fruit, because you'll get a lot of fruit in a lot of cases. And so what do you do with it? And, it's the shelf life is very short, days, hours, days, definitely not weeks. And so one thing that's worked well for us is this tomato strainer. So you don't even need to peel it. You don't do anything, give it a light rinse or whatever if you need to, and just throw it into the strainer. It goes down into the Pyrex bowl underneath, and then you just freeze it. And it's delicious, right? I mean, it's basically like a fruit ice cream. You don't really need to do anything to it. You can add it to a smoothie, get creative. But I just wanted to try to throw that out there as sort of, one of my top tips for white sapotes is how to process it because it's, that seems to be the hold up for most people. And you can see I've got some tomatoes and some sort of mango probably there in the background on this one too. All right. And so some of the top tips for white sapotes, not always the most aesthetic trees, as I mentioned. The grafted trees tend to sort of max out at about 20 feet, and that's just from going to like Bob Chambers' orchard and stuff. You see seedlings getting a lot bigger. Seedling trees can sometimes be, 50, 60 feet and stuff. Subel is the smallest. My Subel, I have mainly a Subel tree in the yard. I maintain it. It's about 8 feet, somewhere thereabouts. It's pretty easy to maintain that height. And in my opinion, it is delicious. Some people don't care for it as much, but I think it's great. And it's an easily multi-grafted tree for sure. And so if you are interested in white sapotes, I have passed my collection off to a friend of mine who is in the club. I'm not going to name that person on this forum because whatever. But if you contact me, I'll put you in touch with the with the CRFG person who sort of has my collection of white sapotes, which is basically Bob Chambers' collection, not the whole thing, but it was about 10 to maybe 15 cultivars of his stuff, which we had a total of about 20 to maybe 25 cultivars. And then we segue into stone fruits, and stone fruits are fun. Stone fruits are one that pretty much the general public knows about, and anyone who's at all into gardening is going to be aware of stone fruits. When you look at this tree right here, though, what's wrong with this tree right here? Yep, it has too much fruit on it. So the fruit needs to be thinned on this tree. So with stone fruits, it's a combination of pruning and thinning. And cool, Jennifer, definitely growing white sapote specifically to graft. So put those seeds in the ground. Put those seeds in a pot. Do something with them. The sort of the joke that we make is that after you eat fruit, the appropriate cleanup from eating a fruit is to go out and plant that seed right away. Especially the subtropicals, planting the seeds right away is the key to getting your germination, in my experience. So I do give like a full length stone fruit talk. So I'm not going to go too deep in this, but we're going to look at. So this is a Bonita peach. So actually, maybe next year, if somebody has Bonita peach, I'd like to. I don't have it anymore. I lost. This is one that I lost, and I'd like to reclaim Bonita peach as one of my collections. So if somebody has that, I'd love to get a stick from you next winter, if you don't mind, please. So let's just jump right into the top tips. But stone fruits are it's a very large, group of trees, and I listed them here on the first slide, most of them anyway. There are others. There's the pecotums as well, and some of the other more exotic ones, nectaplum, I don't list on there. There's only one named nectaplum as far as I know, and that's the Spice Z. So you can just say nectaplum at this point. You don't need to say Spice Z. And that is the one that a lot of people have really latched onto as being an excellent tasting fruit, and it definitely is, and it's very beautiful too. It has the red foliage stuff that fades to green over time. So really good tree. Highly recommend. Stone fruit trees require a fair amount of pruning, especially to keep the harvest, to get more quality versus quantity of fruit and that sort of a thing, right? So I prune in winter when it's defoliated. You can see the structure. You can get the best, the proper pruning technique and all that stuff. You can summer prune vigorous upright canes, particularly on plums and apricots in particular. They'll tend to send shoots that go straight up into the air. If you don't deal with those in summertime, then you're left with some not as awesome choices of pruning in the winter. You can easily multi-graft stone fruit trees. Again, though, if you do that, choose varieties with similar chill. And then it's a combination of pruning and thinning to get better quality versus quantity. And then when people talk about dormant spraying, and I'm going to go into a little bit of a spiel here on dormant spraying, okay, because that's sort of like not the number one cultural control with stone fruits, but it's an important one that a lot of people tend to have questions in, and so that's why I include it in this talk, because this is again a more broad expand. I'm going more breadth versus depth in this talk is typically how I go here. So in terms of anything eating leaves like grasshoppers or whatever, stuff like that, those sorts of controls, I go with something that just tastes bad. So my go-to is usually some sort of like hot pepper, blended with a little bit of oil and water, and then just like a little dash of maybe like some sort of essential oil. Cinnamon is one oftentimes I use. And so then you just spray it on the leaves. And so it tastes bad. And so anything that's out there chomping, so even rats, grasshoppers and that sort of thing, will prevent them, or at least dissuade them from eating your tree. But that's not the typical, pests, the most popular pest issues. So I just saw your question there, Monica. So thanks for putting that in. So hopefully that answered your question reasonably well. The more typical controls, or IPM, integrated pest management, is dormant spraying. And typically we recommend 2 products for that do different things. So if somebody just says to dormant spray your tree, they're really only telling you about like half the story. The other half the story is, what are you trying to do? So typically I recommend a copper product. There used to be a lime sulfur. I don't even know if those are sold anymore, but it's I don't look anymore because I just go with my liquid cop for my antifungal. And then a horticultural oil is what's going to control your boring insects. So it's an antifungal and an oil, and they have 2 different actions in terms of the pests that they work against. So let's go ahead and jump into it a little bit more. So here's some text. This is a little bit of a text-heavy slide, but you can read that if you're looking at your computer screen right now. So you apply when they're dormant. Do 2 to 3, 3 applications is sort of what Tom always recommended to me. That's what I go with, is 3 applications of each for a total of 6, applications total. You don't spray if rain's expected, and then once bud break occurs, it's basically too late. And then again, 2 products are usually needed, and you apply them separately, not at the same time. And so exactly. So the antifungal, or the fungal one, is peach leaf curl. So a lot of people are reporting peach leaf curl this time of year. If you're any of the garden forums, it's like I'm getting sick of seeing people asking about peach leaf curl, because it's like just read the post from before, right? So I'll talk about it here because it's my job and everything. So it's just got its first fruit, but the leaves are all curly white. Okay, so if leaves are curly, I don't think I have it. Just Google peach leaf curl. So Janice maybe, I'm not sure. Just Google peach leaf curl, and if that's it, then there's nothing you can do about it right now. You're going to spray next winter, okay? So why don't I, and very red. Okay, yeah, exactly. So very red, that's exactly right. So if you're seeing sort of like that red, and it looks, I don't know how to describe it, but it looks like a little like mini explosion, and the leaf is deformed and curled and stuff, it's called peach leaf curl. Okay, so for peach leaf curl, is not an oil. Peach leaf curl is the antifungal. So oil sprays are suffocating overwintering insects. It doesn't control all borers, but it does control most. And so you're going to go with either some sort of horticultural oil or a bulk oil, for that. You load it up into a sprayer, you pump it up, a backpack sprayer if you've got a lot of trees, a handheld one if you've just got a couple trees. My general recommendation for dormant spraying on stone fruit trees is, if you got like 1, 2, or 3 trees, don't worry about it until you see, the issues start to come about. If you've got, 6 or more, like 5, 6 or more trees, then I recommend being a little more preventive. Before you see any issues, in a season, you probably want to be dormant spraying your trees, just because it's a matter of time that until you have an issue. So dormant spraying with oil is for overwintering insects, and then the fungicide is the one that's going to help you with your peach leaf curl, for example. And again, there's nothing you can do about it now. Some people will recommend pulling the leaves off. I'm not one of those people. I don't have a ton of time on my hands, and really, like, a leaf that's photosynthesizing at 70% is better than a leaf that is not photosynthesizing at all. Of course, you will have a new growth flush of leaves and all that. That's totally fine and well, but there's no need to really strip the leaves, in my opinion. There's no harm in doing it either. But if you're stripping a lot of leaves, then the tree may need a little bit of nitrogen just to help with that cellular reproduction. So you might want to consider that. But the basic moral of the story is just kick back, don't do anything, and just do something that's worth about it. So do 3 applications of a fungicide. So here's a visual representation that's very simple. It's not highlighting, I showed some graphics last time that were, my more advanced PowerPointing skills and stuff. This is very, new PowerPoint skills here and whatnot. But this shows you this. So over 6 weeks, this is how you do it. So, week 0, spray your fungicide. Next week, do the oil, and then you alternate, back and forth. So here you go. Everybody understands how to dormant spray their stone fruit trees now, right? Right. Good. I am, at my core, I'm a teacher. So there's a lot of other things that I do for work and whatnot. But at my core, I'm a teacher. So conveying information in a succinct manner is something I like to try to do. And hopefully this graphic helps you understand, the scheduling of applying the couple different products that I recommend, for dormant spraying of your stone fruit trees. Okay, Then we'll talk about apples. You know, it's funny. I still encounter people that say, "Oh, we can't grow apples here." I'm just like, "Okay, all right, yeah, like come over to my place and see, you know, apples." All right, so apples grow pretty well here. Here's a list of some that that are, reasonably available. Let's see, do I have? Okay, I only have the one slide of varietals on this one here. But these are ones that are reasonably available, most nurseries and stuff, not all. Ronnie is one that our guy Rolf, has sort of planted, Rolf Defkelson in Escondido area. And so it's a really low chill one. It might even be less than 200. I don't know. It varies from year to year for me. So Hawaii was pretty fire blight resistant for me for quite a while. I don't know if I still have Hawaii in the yard or not, honestly, I forget. And so a few others. I'm not really the biggest fan of Beverly Hills. But I really like Pink Lady. I know it's a commercially available one, but Pink Lady works really well for me. It's just a good blend of sweet and tart and stuff. If you pick it early, it's definitely has some tart to it. If you pick it a little bit late, it gets sweeter and that sort of thing. So here's just a sample. The numbers here represent chill hours. Okay. So I didn't talk about chill hours, so let's talk about that now. There are different models for chill hours out there, and all those models have merit. But the simplest one that I teach is just if you get an hour between 32 and 45 degrees, you count that as one chill hour, and that accumulates over the course of the season. What a chill hour does, though, is in plants is that there are growth promoting hormones, auxins, and then there are growth inhibiting hormones. And depending on the balance of those two, if you have more growth promoting hormones, the tree grows. If you have more growth inhibiting hormones, the tree stops growing. So the trees sort of, so some trees and plants require, chill hours to go into dormancy, some require to come out of dormancy. But the basic concept here is that, so my growth and promoting hormone levels start to go down, through fall. And then in winter, my growth inhibiting hormones are in relatively higher concentration. So the plant, is dormant or more appropriately defoliated, right? It's lost its leaves. As the temperatures start to warm up though and stuff, and as that chill is accumulated, the chill breaks down the growth inhibiting hormone typically, and then the growth promoting hormone starts to have a little bit more concentration relative to the inhibiting hormone. So the tree breaks dormancy and you get the leaf break and and all that, and nature happens, and then eventually you get your fruits. So chill is, in my opinion, is reasonably important. It matters in my experience. You can look at Couple Creek Nursery. And you can look at some of the trials from Dave Wilson, and they're going to say that chill hours are overrated or maybe not not that important. By all means, form your own opinion and grow your stuff. And we're CRFG, so push the envelope a little bit. But I've tried that, and it didn't work as well for me personally in my space in suburban San Diego, which is near the San Diego State area. I actually don't track my exact number of chill hours that I have, but based on what grows well for me, I'm in about the 300 chill hour range. I have trees that are 500 hour, 400 hour, 300 hour, and all that, right? The 300 hour trees do great. The 400s not so good, and the 500s basically don't work really that well. I keep them around just so I have the sign material for grafting at other people's places to get more chill out. So that's my spiel on chill hours. And again, it's not like, you're at 44 degrees and it's a chill hour, and then you're at 46 and it's sort of not in reality, but that's just sort of the most common and the most easily understood, way of going about that. And by all means, if you want to geek out on, I'm a math person, so by all means, geek out on it. There's going to be a better model out there that's more mathematical than just like, hey, is it within that, band temperature? So watch out for fire blight. Basically, all apples have fire blight or are prone to it. And unfortunately, so that's one of the problems. John McNeil about ordering rootstocks is, unfortunately, it's like I've had problems with rootstocks just coming to me that have fire blight. Right? It's not obvious at first, but within a year or so, the tree is showing signs of fire blight, and it's then I pull the plug on it. So fire blight is the number one issue for apples. Loquats can incubate it as well. It's a very also really a problem for pears and stuff too. So there you go. For the most part, we pruned a modified central leader, the lollipop shape, but some do open base. Especially U-pick orchards tend to do open base to keep trees a little bit smaller, lower the ground. So apples are definitely easily multi-grafted. And then of course I have my chill hour comment there. And again, thin the fruit for quality versus quantity. Okay. All right, moving along to mangoes. So we're getting into, so someone who's dialed in, if you're 317-7933, could you mute your phone, please? You're a phone participant. Thank you. John, did you want me to pause and you to talk about a couple things? Did you want to do that, or?
You're doing fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and keep going.
Okay, you let me know what you want. As far as Reverend Morgan goes, I don't totally recall, but I think it's in that 200-ish hour, 250 hours, somewhere thereabouts. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't have that one in my mental database, so I'm hanging my hat on that answer. But that's what I recall, Mark. You know, it's in the lower chill category. If somebody on the call, you know, quick Google search or something other, somebody on the call might have more experience than I do with that one. So mangoes, you know, can we grow mangoes in Southern California? The answer is yes, we can, of course, right? And we don't need to necessarily buy the ones from Tim Thompson either. There are other ones that are available as well. So I am sometimes looking for a couple chuckles from the people's faces that I can see. So if I do make a funny joke or something other, go ahead and laugh. It helps, you know, give me some nonverbal feedback that I'm doing okay. I'm also seeing my son there at the dinner table. So hey, G, how you doing, buddy? Hi. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I love you. So there's some mangoes and stuff right here. Here's some from my backyard, Gold Nugget. So this Gold Nugget mango that I have here on the screen, this is probably my best single mango eating experience in my life, was eating that specific mango right there. You should check out in the Fruit Gardener magazine, I wrote an article with Jim, or co-wrote an article with Jim a few years ago on a mango tasting that we did that was amazing. We tasted about 60 fruits in a day. We all left with belly aches, and I'm sure that did horrible things to my blood sugar at the time. But Ataulfo homegrown is an amazing fruit. I have a couple trees of Ataulfo. The only problem with Ataulfo is that it's a very unreliable fruit setter. So that's the problem. Okay, so then we've got signs available. Yeah, I mean, I have some signs available of a few things and stuff. Not a lot. But Peggy is one of the ones that I grow. Peggy Winters was the initial sort of like social chair, if you will, of California Rare Fruit Growers way back in the day. She organized the various trips that they did. That's one that I have around and available, and then a few others. And then Uli, it was Peach Cobbler. Could you put in the chat, man? What is it that I did? Because I forgot to label it. It was Peach Cobbler. Was that the one that you did? O2? I don't know what that is. I don't geek out on all the names, so it's like Peach Cobbler's out there. That is the right name. Okay, cool. So I'll label it and stuff before. I'll label it. So grafting mangoes. I graft in the okay, cool, got it. I graft mangoes in the summer and like late summer. So I'm grafting in. It's usually like August, September by the time I get around to it. You can do it earlier in the year and stuff, but harvesting the right signwood is crucial. Just like with all the evergreens, with evergreens, it's more important to harvest good signwood that has viable leaf buds on it. So the other thing that's interesting, Carlos, on mango grafting is it's the only one that I've had where I'll graft something in like August and it'll start pushing growth for me in February or March. So it's ridiculous. Just like it'll look like it's not doing anything. It's still green, it's hanging on, whatever. And then it just pushes growth, 6-7 months later. Nothing else that I work with, has that habit. And it doesn't happen all the time. If you do it right, the growth pops out right away and stuff. But you graft just like anything else. It's a sort of a soft wood, but like anything else, it's just selecting high quality scion and timing it reasonably right, and matching up cambium. So getting the mechanical connection, timing it right, selecting high quality scion wood, and you'll be okay. Yep, exactly. Oh, really? Avocados for you too. Great. Thanks for sharing, John. So keep going here. So what we've come up with is that also the turpentine rootstock that's commonly used for the Florida mangoes. My experience, and it tends to be in my little echo chamber of the people in the fruit world here in Southern California, we all tend to not like turpentine as a mango rootstock, for example. It seems like, people are using manila. They're just going to Home Depot or whatever, buying a manila tree for $24-25, and then they just graft onto it. Either that or you're planting your own seed. So I plant my own seed. So on the bigger mangoes, like the Kent and the kits that come ripe, I buy the Kents. I buy Kents and kits from the store in the summertime. They're good quality fruits and stuff. I plant those seeds and those seeds work, okay? If you go out there and you plant Ataulfo seeds, though, because of the hot water treatment that they go through at the border for, you know, the APHIS, you know, USDA APHIS treatment that's in the hot water bath, it tends to decrease the viability of the seeds on those smaller fruits. So the bigger fruits, seeds are viable, plant your own, grow your own rootstocks and stuff. The smaller fruits, though, you know, basically they're not viable after the hot water treatment. You know, you get down to like 5% germination rate or something ridiculous like that. That used to not be the case for me. So, so thanks. Hey, Paul Weir, buddy. Thanks for joining, man. Awesome to have you here. Paul is now a really good friend. Paul's involved in, sort of antique, old school apples and stuff. Paul's not in our geographic area, but Paul, awesome to see you, buddy. I'm glad to see you could join in. Jim over here is one of my mentors, so he's one of the old timers. So Paul, as you know, I like to talk to the old timers and glean all their lessons learned, you know, because I mean, you know, my lifetime isn't enough to gather the amount of knowledge and information that I want to learn, you know, myself. So therefore, I need to, you know, take advantage of the interactions that I get with people like Jim that have done it for, you know, 60 years or more. And so here he's got one that he called Rose Giant, you know, at 21 ounces and stuff. And so here's some mangoes, Manila, Kensington Pride, an Australian mango, you know, one of the ones in Leo's collection in the Penasquitos area and stuff. A really good mango. For a little while there, Kensington Pride was, you know, one of my most reliable producers. That was also really tasty. You know, not one of the more exotic ones, not one of the new school, like, you know, Zill exotic, you know, developed ones, but a real solid mango that, you know, has sort of stood the test of time. Cool. Yeah. Which one? Mangoes time to graft is August. Yeah. I mean, I graft mangoes in about August as well for the most part. And that's a function of, you know, it's a good time and it's also sort of, you know, I intend to do it earlier in the summer and I just don't get around to it. So here's Leo standing next to probably a kit tree here, but you can see Leo's about 6 feet tall. So this tree is, you know, less than him and there's fruits everywhere. So 1, 2, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something back here, something here. So one of the old, you know, one of the adages out there is, hey, don't let a young tree carry fruit. That's one of those things that people say. And there's merit to that. There's a lot of merit to that. If you let mangoes and avocados, or mangoes in particular, not as much avocados, but mangoes in particular, if you let them carry fruit a little too much when they're early, they tend to get a little bit stunted just because the growth habit, the fruit's so heavy it bends the branches down, and it takes a long time for them to sort of, you know, recover with an upright growth pattern. So if it comes to like heavier fruits, I tend to buy into that, like, hey, don't let young trees, you know, fruit. But if you're looking to keep a tree relatively small, then there's no harm in letting a young tree carry some fruit. You don't let it carry more fruit than the branch can bear to maturity because you don't want to treat a branch to break or anything like that. You know, so anyway, it's just one of those hard and fast rules that isn't so hard and fast after all. But with mangoes, I would suggest in general, you know, don't let them carry as much fruit when they're younger because otherwise you're sort of permanently stunting the tree. To being, or not permanently, but semi-permanently, it's something the tree to be a much smaller tree than you might want. And let's face it, I think all of us want to eat as many mangoes as we can. So here's Leo with one. I think this is probably one of his Thompson polyembryonic mangoes here. A polyembryonic mango is one that comes true to seed. So Ataulfo and Manila are of that variety where they'll come true to seed. The monoembryonic are like the Kents and the Kits, where if you plant the seed, you will get a new cultivar. It'll be similar to what you started with. It'll be a high quality mango and stuff. It will be something that's a little bit different. So some top tips here is, you know, for us in general, put them in the hottest spot of your yard. They grow in flushes. So if you're able to get, you know, 3 or 4 flushes a year, then you're going to be just fine. If you get 1 or 2 flushes, then you're going to be somewhat disappointed, maybe possibly. You know, but at any rate, you know, they're growing, you know, Wong's Farm out in Salton Sea area, like Coachella Valley. You know, they're growing mangoes commercially out there in the desert. And of course they're irrigating, but it's the heat that they really like. So the difference between, you know, so like tropical mangoes, the growing season is basically all year round, right? You know, if you're going to be near the equator in Hawaii and the tropics and whatnot. For us in sort of, you know, the San Diego, Southern California area, you know, in the 30-degree, you know, type latitude areas, our growth season, it's much shorter. So you're going to get flushes at when it's hot typically. So placing them near moving air, you know, fungal issues are very prevalent on mangoes. Like Namdok Mai is notorious for having fungal issues. So sometimes it is, you know, cultivar or varietal dependent. Sometimes it's cultural. If you don't have any airflow, then that's going to be a problem. You can multi-graft them, and in general, you sort of choose, you know, quote unquote early, you know, ripening cultivars. just because we don't have that year-round growth cycle that you do in the tropics. So I am watching the chat. I think I've done a pretty good job of monitoring what's going on. I don't think a question has gone unanswered. So there you are. So early cultivars. So some of the ones that I should. So Kent Kit would be sort of more of the commercially available ones that are a little bit earlier. The Kensington Pride, Valencia Pride, Gold Nugget. I don't know exactly where Maha Chinook fits in, but Maha Chinook works fine. Pete, if you want to chime in some of your cultivars or what you have, those are really good ones, to have around too. There was a Fruit Gardener magazine, I forget exactly when it was, maybe 3 years ago or so. And, we did type up about 60 different mangoes in that article. And a growth flush is one where, so it's not like a uniform rate of growth. It's more like the tree will push out a good, 6 to 12 inches of growth at the tips of each branch in a period of just a few weeks or so. So that's what a growth flush is. So mitigating fungal issues. So the first thing to do is preventive cultural practices, and that's going to be selecting a somewhat mildew resistant, powdery mildew type resistant cultivar in the first place, planting it in the appropriate location, which means airflow and appropriate sunlight, not dank, moist type conditions. And then the other thing is, if you need to, is then you're going to go with like a liquid cop or some sort of antifungal spray, right? But again, don't discount the first thing. So right plant, right place. Appropriate cultural practices, aka pruning in this case. And then your third thing is, moving into more of, some sort of chemical-based IPM control. Something along those lines. Okay. So let's keep going. Persimmons. Persimmons aren't my personal favorite. I have an appreciation. Yep. And so the leaves, when they come out for mangoes, they're like, for me, they're a red color. If you Google search, my name and mangoes, you'll see some videos shot by the Reader magazine about in 2012. And actually, I highlight, some, fresh new growth, in that little short video that you have. So anthracnose, that's a fungal issue. So, just what I told for Monica's question, same answer right there. That'll work for you, John. At least that's my opinion and my take on it. I really don't have fungal issues on mine. I keep them pruned pretty well. They're on sort of the top side of a hill, so there's plenty of airflow and stuff. I've either been lucky or I did some things right. So. Alrighty. So persimmons. Persimmons are a lovely fruit. It's one of the more boutique-ish, commercially viable fruits. Not in like a strict commercial setting, but if you're looking to do sort of like a U-pick or some sort of some sort of boutique industry, persimmons are probably a good choice for you. For some reason or another, the California Fuyu Growers Association listed my information on their site for like 2 or 3 years. I really don't have much to do with persimmons, to be honest with you, but I was getting phone calls all the time. And if I would have been a little smarter about it, I had the demand. I should have met them with the supply and I should have made the deal happen. But at any rate, I think there is a demand for some persimmons out there. And there's much more than just the Fuyu and the Hachia, for example. There's this one, which is Tamapan, which looks like this. It looks sort of like it's out of the Simpsons, cartoon or something other. And this is one out the South Coast Station. And the South Coast Station has, I think it's about 40, 45 cultivars, somewhere thereabouts. And we appreciate, Isabel has done some presentations for us, on that in the past. Here's Coffee Cake Persimmon. It's not colored up super well, but this is one of the pollination dependent varieties. So chocolate coffee cake, and I'm sure there's some others. These ones will turn brown if they're on the inside. Will be a little bit more brownish, which is a good thing. It means it's bringing out some additional flavors and stuff. This one does taste like coffee cake, and chocolate does taste a little like chocolate. And where can you purchase Tamapan? I have no idea, but you're gonna have to. It's gonna be one of those things where you just got to get signed, right? I mean, as Margaret and others, experienced growers in our club know that, like, if you want to get the stuff that's really rare, you got to grow your own, and then find somebody who has it, get signed with it, and do it yourself, because you just can't go down to your local box store and be like, hey, yeah, I'd like that. Here's my $50, take my money. No, it doesn't work that way. You gotta, it's like soul surfing, right? You can't go out to the point break and expect to drop into the first wave when you're a rookie. It's like you got to pay your dues before you start getting left, right? Okay, all right, great. So then here's a few cultivars from the South Coast Station. So fruiting's on 1-year-old wood. So I recommend you doing a light prune on persimmons every year, being fairly consistent. So not as aggressive as stone fruits and stuff, more like just a light, maintenance pruning, like slow and steady is key on persimmons in my experience. I do like to paint, they will sunburn and stuff. And so the other aspect of painting a tree, it's not just protection from sunburn, but you actually learn how the tree grows. You learn where it sets fruit. You learn how it grows from year to year. So this is 2020. So imagine, in the fall when my persimmon loses its leaves, if I paint the tree, 2020, any wood that's white was growth from 2020. Any growth that is, brown or green or whatever is growth from 2021, for example. So it's another way that you can become a citizen scientist and learn, about how, how it works. So persimmons are fairly finicky when being established. I see a lot of persimmons fail when they're young. For that reason, a lot of folks, the common wisdom is to generally, some people won't recommend a bare root persimmon, for example. I don't believe in hard and fast rules. There's a time and place for everything, but they are finicky when they're younger. So if you do get one that's maybe been a little bit mistreated during that bare rooting process or whatever it might be, it might be more prone to failure. I don't know, but I'm just throwing that out there. But once you get a tree that's in that like 5-6 foot range, and you get a trunk that's starting to become like the caliper of my wrist or so, you're looking pretty good, and I think you'll be clear about that. Depending on how much fruit set you get, you may need to thin your fruit. So figs, there's thousands of figs out there and stuff, and I'm not an expert on figs. I do appreciate eating figs though, for sure. So we'll talk about figs. This is one of the ones that I got from Richard Frost. So I don't think Richard's on here, but he coined it Mark's Hungarian. It's when the story on this one is that he had a friend whose name was Mark. He was a chef in the Chicago area, and it was his Hungarian grandmother brought this tree to Chicago, and they were growing it. This fruit right here is my best fig eating experience I've ever had in my life. I've been trying to recreate this experience though for several years, and the fruit has not been of the romantic ideal that I have in my brain that I remember. But part of that is because I was harvesting wood off that tree so hard because I was propagating it constantly. And then I stopped propagating it a couple of years ago because I said, let's let this thing grow, and let's get that taste sensation of the fruit back again. So this tree is growing in my yard again. I have put it out there. Hopefully people have it. If you have this tree though, it's a special tree. It's not one that's out there much. So if you do have this one, then by all means, please take care of it and share it at the appropriate time. I don't get, so John, I don't really get too much alternate bearing, but just, what we will talk about is that, am I going to get this backwards? Is it the Brava crop that's on last year's growth and then the new crop that's on current growth? Is that right? I think so. I think I have that right. The Brava, cool. Thanks, buddy. Yeah. So the Brava crop is the one that's on last year's growth, and that's the one that comes in about now, if you're fortunate enough to have that on the cultivars that you grow. And then you get a second crop that's on current year's growth. Now, of course, there's variations to that, and not all cultivars. Some will have a heavier Brava, and vice versa, right? So there you go. Anyway, then a few other figs here. So Sierra fig here. Violette de Bordeaux is a well-known, darker purple-skinned fig that's really tasty. It also tends to stay smaller. So when people are looking for smaller figs, Blackjack is the one that Dave Wilson has on their site, but Violette de Bordeaux is very small. For me, Sierra has stayed small too. That may be a function of my heavy clay soil, because I have read that it's a little bigger in other places. But Sierra is a winner for me. It's a green fig that tastes really good, and my tree is about 6 feet tall or so, and it tends to maintain that pretty easily. This is one Mike Woolley knows about, because this is like one of those first sort of like rare cultivars that came into my collection. I was like, oh, I've got one from the UC Davis germplasm collection. That's awesome. And it actually was a pretty good one. So yeah. Oh, cool. Awesome. Great. So yeah, good. I'm glad to hear that you have that one, Mark. Really like it. So, oh, okay. Oh yeah. Alternate year bearing for persimmons. Yeah, I definitely see that. If if you have a heavy crop one year, it tends to sort of, be quite a bit lighter the next year. Some people say if you do good thinning and sort of keep it a little more steady state, you'll get, a more balanced crop year to year. So I'm not going to give you too many top care tips for figs and stuff. but they tend to be fairly bulletproof. They're not all huge, large trees. That's what everybody thinks. There's lots of small ones, lots of big ones, thousands of them out there. Our buddy John Burdick operates figsforfun.org, and they're fun to propagate. You can also graft them too, though, right? So as far as I did see a post in like the Santa Barbara group a little while ago about, growing trees on their own roots. And, like on the one hand, that's fine, but growing trees on their own roots versus grafting and stuff. The question brought up from the peanut gallery is, how do you grow a Hass avocado on its own roots? And the answer is it's sort of like it's almost impossible, because if you plant a seed of a Hass avocado, it's not a Hass avocado that you're getting, right? The only way that you could do that is through a process called etiolation, but that's beyond what we're going to talk about here. But the point is like, there's nothing wrong with grafting trees, in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with growing seedling trees. There's nothing wrong with propagating things from cutting and doing clonal trees. Even if you look at rootstocks and stuff, half of the rootstocks out there are clonal rootstocks, which are from cutting. The other half of them are from seedling. If it comes down to it, though, what I prefer, though, is I prefer putting a seed in the ground where that tree is going to be, and that'll preserve the taproot as much as possible. And that's going to be the best suggested tree that I have. So, instead of considering we're talking about trees growing on their own roots or something like that, let's try to plant seeds in the ground in situ where you're planning to grow the tree. And that's going to produce the best root system for you, in that situation. Okay, so space limitations and stuff, yeah, because some rootstocks will have dwarfing characteristics. Cool, so figdatabase.com, not familiar with that one, but thanks for sharing, Charlie, I appreciate it. Yep, you hope to have some cuttings this year. That's great, Amy. That's the spirit of CRFG, is, you share what you got, because at some point that person, it's like somebody shared with you, right, to get that tree. It's time for you to share it when you can and when there's sufficient time. So I want to try to keep going, because I know we've been talking here for a long time. Hopefully y'all are still engaged. If you're there on the camera, give me a thumbs up if you're doing good. If you're doing good. All right, yeah. Ooh, stretch time. All right, go ahead and stand up. Crack that beer. Do whatever you need to do. If you were playing a drinking game, I don't know what the buzzwords were going to be, but maybe next time you incorporate that into the too. So yep, good. I love it. I'll stand up too. How's that? Here we go. Standing up. All righty. So Summer's Bounty. So here we have Summer's Bounty, and everything here was grown in the yard with the exception of the broccoli. And one of the ways that I like to use a lot of fruits and stuff is making pizza. It's a great vehicle for a lot of different things. And so, what you see here is you see some peppers, you see some peaches, you see some figs and stuff. And through all those, I really like the juxtaposition of sweet and spicy. And on a pizza, that's a really great flavor combo for me personally. So that's one thing that I like. And then we get into so pomegranates. So pomegranates are nature's Christmas tree. You get big red ornaments that hang on the tree for about 5-6 months out of the year, and you tend to harvest them right around the Christmas holiday time, maybe a little before, obviously, right? But pomegranates are a bulletproof tree. I gained a better appreciation for pomegranates after going to Sedona, Arizona. So in Sedona, I came across like an old homestead type situation, and they had pomegranate trees growing there that had been untended since about 1910s, the 19 teens or something like that. And it's getting 115, 120 degrees in the summertime. No supplemental water, and I just said, my gosh, these trees are amazing. So that's sort of when I had a better appreciation for pomegranates as to how hardy they are and having a place. And then of course I learned more about Dr. Levine and his flight from Turkmenistan, and his collection of 1,441 pomegranates, and how he said that Parfianka was the most important one of the 200 or 220 that he was able to save from his collection. So pomegranates, pretty tree, low water use. They do have a few thorns and stuff from time to time. But plant them more at the periphery of your property. Don't plant them right in the center by a pathway. So this is the opposite of what Jill's comment was, planting the weeping mulberry on the pathway for ease of picking. Plant the pomegranate maybe a little bit further from the path to avoid those prickliness. They tend to multi-trunk. So I recommend just go with that. You can work with nature or against it. And if you really need to have a single trunk tree, then maybe consider something else. There are literally thousands of varieties. Some of the ones that I have on here are not ever seed, but ever sweet. And there's a bunch. I mean, there's really good ones. So why don't you go ahead and, you guys can type in some of the ones that you guys like, if you have them. I haven't done blueberries on pizza. Life-changing, really. Okay, wow. All right. Okay. I had blueberries in my beer, though, Chelsea, and that was pretty good. So, yeah. Yeah, there's some people really, the Jam the Radar from Bottle Logic was, I know it's not blueberries in that one, but some people really dig that one. So cool. So soft-seeded varieties, I mean, Parfianca sort of is like the most famous one, but Eversweet, Angel, all of those are pretty much soft-seeded varieties. Ganesh is the one that doesn't tend to lose its leaves. So if you want a more evergreen one, then Ganesh is the one for you. Cool. So, I mean, there's thousands. So you guys are going to be typing stuff in here that I've never even heard of, right? Marta, Marta's one of our, OG people at this point now. So Marta up in the Sacramento area, she does a lot with pomegranates. Okay, avocados, and I think we're getting reasonably close to the big finish here. So avocados, of course, we can do a dedicated talk on. Southern California known for its avocados. Should you grow a Hass avocado? Yes, by all means, but there are thousands more too. And so we have Julie Frank to thank for her wonderful presentations over the years, where she brings out the spread of avocados and stuff, and she labels them, and that takes hours to pull that together. And of course, at the end of the talk, it's convenient because if you're nice to her and you ask, she will let you take home a fruit or two, that you're interested in. So lots of different fruits available here for you. One of my favorites in terms of the trees and the fruit itself is a reed. If you can pull off a reed, it's a really good choice. Yep, I love it. Thanks, Ray. I'm with you on that. It's a big fruit, right? A Hass is a good fruit. Pinkerton's a good fruit. Lots of good fruits out there and stuff. A reed is of sufficient size that it can make me, a big guy, satisfied. So it's going to be about a softball sized fruit, maybe a little bit smaller in some cases. And I think I have this one set up. So this is how fast a reed goes. It goes like this, and it's gone. So hopefully you're watching. But the cool thing about it is that the skin is really thick. So if you have a thick skin variety, imagine you scoop the flesh out of the skin. If you have a thin skin variety, like Fuertes or whatever, I'll try to scoop, but if it's really hard, like Arabica is really hard to peel. So I sort of peel the skin off of the fruit, right? So that might add something new to your, awareness or your paradigm is, again, like a thick skinned avocado, get the, you spoon it out or however you like to do it. If you have thin skinned fruit though, peel the skin off of the flesh. Here's a cool graphic. What's the question that we always get? Hey, I heard I need a male and a female avocado, or I need two of them, or whatever, right? So, buttery, nutty flavored avocados. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I think, Reed is considered buttery. Nutty is going to be like Pinkerton and Stewart, some of those ones, that sort of thing. Yep. Okay, cool. Great. Yep. Just reading some of the chat there. Awesome. So avocados are not male or female. They have perfect flowers, meaning that the flowers do have both a male and a female phase. Okay. And there's some overlap. So the way that it works is if you have only one tree, or only an A-type tree, or only a B-type tree, you're going to get cross-pollination in the middle of the day. So that's what my graphic here is trying to show you. So right in the upper right here, it says A plus B pollination equals you have all day pollination. If you have A only, it's the middle of the day. B only, it's the middle of the day in terms of the phases of the flowers that you have, right? So if you want to get copious fruit set, plant an A and a B type, that sort of thing. You could also graft a stick on there. But the other thing that's lacking from this is that you also have to have them flowering at the same time too, right? So it's a little more complicated. And if you really want copious fruit set on avocados, I think the best thing for you to do is get bees. So this is where sometimes I talk about my sister Kim, in her property up in Santa Barbara that has 6 historic avocado trees, and her best harvests were when she had a volunteer beehive, bees colonize, in one of her trees for the year, and the fruit set that year was off the charts. So here's the type A and B flower phases, of avocados, and this is a graphic that I'm, reasonably proud to pull together because it's, based off of, reading up about it, how it works, and then presenting you a sort of a complicated body of knowledge into one simple infographic. You can look at that for just 1 second while I take a sip of water. Okay, so top tips. Relatively finicky trees, especially when younger, they have coarse roots that are also sort of delicate. So, avocados have the reputation of, being thirsty trees, which is sort of true. It's a function. You've got to dig a little bit deeper. It's not just that they're thirsty trees. It's that they have a coarse root system. So yes, so coarse root system means less surface area, which means less ability to uptake water. The other things that are going for it is in a commercial setting, they're planted in well-draining soil, they're planted on slopes, and commercially, water is an input that guarantees you more fruit set, aka income. So because of those three conditions that we have for commercial orchards, they have the reputation of, requiring more water. If you plant an avocado in, like a living, organic rich soil that has like the right blend of aeration, water retention, that like, mythical, soil that's freely draining and highly water retaining, right? Then avocados are going to take a lot less water than you might think. The other thing is that in the home scale orchard, this isn't like a cash crop for you. So whether you get, you definitely don't want to get just like 5 avocados, but if you get 50 versus 75, or if you get, 150 versus 200, that doesn't really matter. For a commercial grower, it does, because that's an extra, $50 a tree or what have you. So, okay. Got a couple of things on here. Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks, Uli and others for jumping in. Let me scroll up a little bit. Okay. How long do we need to wait before harvesting the fruit? Yeah, exactly. So I would say it is cultivar dependent. That's something that takes some time. So the larger fruits can hang on the tree. You'll have 2 different crops of fruits. So the ones that have more of the bright sheen are the current year's crops. The one that is a little bit more like the matte finish, like what Mike Uli is saying in here, is definitely accurate, and I agree. And so Charwell, I don't grow Charwell, Margaret, so I don't know if anybody has experience with that, growing it near the coast. I would think that it would do okay, because, that's one of the popular Hawaii varieties. So I would think it would do well near the coast, but I don't grow that one in particular, so I don't know. But Jennifer, maybe you have some insight onto that. You can chat in if you haven't already. How do you know if it's an A or a B type? If you have a seedling, then that's really hard to figure out. You're going to need to read up on that. So answering Michelle's question about A or B types, I recommend just looking it up online. Like if you know the name cultivar, then just look it up and it'll be available for you. And some honestly don't exhibit strict A and B flowering types. So I'm going to get this a little bit backwards here, but oops, that is the wrong thing to be showing. You guys didn't see any of that. Great, cool. So over here though, so I'm going to get this wrong, but it's okay. The concept is true. So the type A, the flower opens male in the morning of day 1, it closes, and it reopens as a female in the afternoon of day 2. Okay. B is the opposite, is that it opens as male in the afternoon and then it goes to female the following day. And again, I have that a little bit off. Okay. But that's the concept here. So trees don't exhibit strict A or B flowering phases. It's a general rule for the cultivar. Okay. So, and again, like I want to be really clear, because I like being precise as a speaker and presenter. So I'm totally like, I'm butchering exactly like, the exact phases. I have it in my detail in my avocado, specific presentation. I have the detail in that. I'm just not recalling it. So at any rate, getting back to here though, in terms of, they don't use as much water as we might think. Trace nutrients are recommended, more so than a few other trees and stuff. I recommend organic fertilizers, in particular on avocados, just to keep salts down and stuff. If you're running a commercial operation, you're going to have to fertigate and go with synthetics. So rainwater is a good thing to use. If you're harvesting rainwater, then prioritize that for your avocados. It's a good thing to do. Some of my favorites are at the bottom there. Reed, Lamb-Hass, Hass, Pinkerton, Gwen, Holiday. Holiday is actually is sort of okay for me. It's the darling of a lot of people because it does tend to be a smaller tree and it has a lot of Guatemalan influence to it, so it is good. But not my favorite. I think Reed is is probably my favorite, I would say. And there are other ones that are like Reed too. So the parent of Reed is, I think it's Anaheim and Nabal. Yeah, Nabal and Anaheim are the parents of Reed, for example. So Nabal is a really delicious one. It just tends to be a little more alternate bearing. I don't think I've ever had an Anaheim fruit. But there are some other seedling Nabals out there that are pretty amazing. I had one for a little while called Elena, but it died on me, so I don't think that one's really. There is a parent tree of that in Spring Valley that's worthwhile. Okay, so let me just do a quick scan here. I have an unknown at my house that I'm about to chainsaw. Well, that, you can make the determination if you're at that point or not, I guess. You can top work these if you really want to. Let's see, so Doug Young, high mineral well, yep, it's killed, yep. Yeah, I don't know. I would just say, if you can harvest some rainwater, so Doug's question is about high mineral well water. Go with like a really rich, like organic soil, like look into hugelkultur or composting place type of situation. and also prioritize any rainwater catchment or collection that you do into that area. And, in theory, that would sort of help to, flush some of your salts out and that sort of a thing. Gypsum might be something to look into, or you might want to look into like a water softener, some sort of system, if it really becomes a problem. I do give a flavor of that presentation, on my own when I do an avocado dedicated talk. So let's see. Yep, female stage open before the male stages. That's probably true. I probably got it wrong, Charlie. But you're right. It is a perfect flower that the same flower has both male and female stages. I hope I gave a sufficient disclaimer on my explanation of the A and the B. Excellent in my accuracy there. So we'll keep going here, and we're getting really close to the big finish, everybody. So thanks for bearing with us. And I hope you've had a good evening. I hope you're, enjoying your family and enjoying a tasty beverage or a good treat or some sort of fresh fruit from your yard. So bananas, can really fruit year round. As you know, it's a corm. It's sort of like a bulb type plant. The trunk is actually a pseudostem, so it's not really technically a tree. You can grow bananas here, of course. In my opinion, it's somewhat reasonably utility. Thanks, Monica. Appreciate it. Thanks, John. It's a somewhat limited utility just because, like, I can buy bananas at the store and they're pretty good for me. But by all means, no. Margaret says, hell no. So anyway, you can grow those yourself, though. It's just one that I haven't, I've done okay with bananas. I just sort of tend to prioritize a limited amount of real estate for them. So lychee is worthwhile, though. Lychee can be grown. It's going to be ripe for us in about September in the fall, that sort of thing. The show, here's a picture of Leo's Brewster lychee tree that's about 15 feet tall or so. It's an old tree. They do grow reasonably slowly and stuff, but a good lychee tree is delicious. You can grow that here. Rose apple is another one that's also just sort of unique. It tends to get a little bit tall, so it may not be the most bang for your buck. If you're only gonna have 5 trees, don't plant a rose apple. But if you've got 25 or 30 trees, then rose apple could be in the mix, and it's a pretty delicious fruit. It tastes like a rose. You plant the seeds. It's a very refreshing fruit. So, okay, yep. Yeah, I don't really know. I'm not an expert on bananas. So Kathleen, I'm checking out your question on Cavendish bananas, developing a fungus. I don't know. It's sort of debatable. Because the plant, the living part of the plant is actually below the ground. So if you had a fungal, sort of issue in the corm, the piece that's below the ground, then that's going to be problematic, and it might be an issue for you. But maybe someone else here on we have a lot of knowledgeable people on the program here tonight. So go ahead. Someone else might be able to offer something a little bit more astute than my observation there. Black sapote is actually a persimmon. It's very popular in Mexico. It does taste a little like chocolate and stuff. Some people say it tastes like motor oil. Some people say it tastes like chocolate. It's polarizing fruit, but it can be grown here. And then some others that I don't really have pictures on, that I don't go into detail, because I think I do about 17 or 18 different fruits in this talk. Of course, we can't cover all of them. Attend the Festival of Fruit, or get the Fruit Gardener magazine, or keep going to your CRFG meetings and all that sort of thing, and you can learn about all of them. But here's a few just basic facts for you, or just some recommended varieties and that sort of a thing. So feijoa, guavas, jujubes, papaya, raspberries, macadamias, all those things and stuff there. Just a few other pieces for you. And then I take just a little bit of time. So, hey, here's the soapbox alert part, of my talk, or at least part of it. So, I talked a little bit about the don't prune trees in their first year. Well, you know what? Proper pruning is actually fine any time of year. There is something to be said that the tree is trying to photosynthesize, and if you cut off branches and leaves, you're inhibiting the ability for it to photosynthesize, which is how a tree makes food. Fertilizers are not food. Photosynthesis produces food. Plants create their own food through the wonderful, carbon sequestration that they do, which is CO2, water, and sunlight, and photosynthesis happens. So that said, you can prune a tree at any time that you want. as long as you're making a proper pruning cut and you're making the cost benefit decision of like, more leaves, more photosynthesis, more energy, or hey, that's just like that branch is growing in the wrong direction. It's a co-dominant leader, something with a very narrow crotch angle or whatever it is. So there's a variety of factors that go into that. So I don't like the hard and fast rule of don't ever prune a tree in the first year. The other thing about it is, check this out, is what is the first year of a tree, right? I don't care what year you planted in the ground. That tree is already, it's 6 months to 5 years to maybe 10 years old by the time you put it in the ground. So the arbitrary rule of the first year is not an absolute thing either. So there's a little bit there. Don't let a young tree carry any fruit. It's a good general rule, I think. I agree with it as a general rule. But again, if you have a tree that's known to be very vigorous, letting it carry some fruit when it's young will help slow down the growth, right? So you can use that to your effect. Use that to the effect that you desire for your context. That's the key to all my talks, is there's a time and a place for every management strategy, every technique, and what really dictates the proper course of action is your context. And that's the context of your growing philosophy. That's how you manage your space, of the space that's available to you, the environmental conditions, and just, whatever it is that you want to have the free will to decide. That's up to you. Congratulations, you've earned it. So fertilization. Fertilization, I said, it does not equate to food. You can fertilize trees. It's a relatively easy input, and it does, help with, fruit set and, more production, that sort of thing. It can also help with some, nutritional issues. But that's fine and well. But it's not required to fertilize trees. Okay, I hardly fertilize any of my trees. I'd probably get a little bit more fruit set if I did, but my trees, thrive with virtually no fertilization in general. And so I'm just throwing that out there to you. So you can throw fertilizer on the ground, and it will probably help your yields and that sort of thing. But if you have a real nice, healthy, living soil that is cycling nutrients with a large, microbiome going on and stuff. So yeah, mulching is a good key to everything, because mulching does a variety of things. Mulching, thermoregulates, it hydroregulates, it feeds the soil food web slowly over time. It helps, bring in, fungal fungi to help you with your fungal dominated soils and stuff, which is what most of our trees want. So, mulching with a wood product is always a good idea in my opinion. Neem oil. Neem oil is just the darling of the gardening world for whatever reason. It's an oil. It works to smother. So if you have, good bugs, bad bugs, neem oil doesn't care. It kills by the same action of any oil, which is smothering it. So there's a time and a place for neem oil, but don't freak out. The bottom line is that, my next bullet down here, something is eating my blah, blah, blah. How do I kill it? I can't stand that philosophy. I mean, you need to understand what's going on in the garden. It's this is nature. And this is how it works, is that there are, by far, every, organism has its place in the food web and the ecosystem and stuff. So by all means, if the damage is, more than you can tolerate, that you want to tolerate for whatever reason, by all means, you intervene and you take some sort of, IPM, strategy. And so you always go with preventive measures before you go with, detective or responsive controls. The other thing is that you always go with, in this sort of orders, you go with more of a biological control first, which is predator-prey type stuff. Then you go with a mechanical control, which is like a trap or something like that. And sort of my last resort is more of a chemical control. So I go in that order. I go with biological, mechanical, chemical, if I decide to intervene at all. And the first question I ask is, am I willing to tolerate the damage? Yes or no? And if you say yes, then congratulations, you go home and you don't do anything. So BT is an interesting one, Bacillus thuringiensis. So in reality, there are, I think it's about 7 or 8 or 10 different strains of BT. Now, and they all supposedly target, different organisms, and, they make the stomach explode and that sort of thing, right? So I'm not, an epidemiologist, I'm not a microbiologist, but, I don't see BT. I mean, I think BT works, BT works on a lot of different things and stuff, but it's also similar to neem oil. It's not like the darling. There's not zero repercussions out there. I'd be hesitant to be dousing something with BT that, I'm going to be eating in close proximity to that application and stuff. So again, that's I don't have a great, diploma on the back of my wall that, helps inform that opinion of mine, but just stuff that's designed to kill. I don't like putting that onto something, in close proximity to me eating it. That's my opinion on it. So I think BT is also sort of overused. I think there's a time and a place for it, and by all means, it's one of the more benign. Whether you call it a biological or a chemical control is debatable, because it's also sort of mechanical. But at any rate, that's my quick take on BT. So thanks for asking the question, Carl. Okay, staking trees. Staking trees is often a mistake. Ha, 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 ha. Then also, then when somebody says this tree is X years old, or this tree is, like this tree is, like a 3-year-old tree. Well, it's not. It's like you bought it and put it in your ground 3 years ago, but the poor nurseryman who was trying to make a proper buck and an honest living, grew that thing out for 4 years as a seedling, then grafted it, then grew it out for another 2 years. So it's actually 6 years old by the time it came to you. So now it's actually 9 years old. That sort of thing, right? And then, I prefer planting trees on their own roots. That was one that I addressed a little bit earlier. For me, I like a tap-rooted tree. That's the thing that I like the best. So, I don't care if it's on its own roots necessarily, because there are plenty of trees that are on their own roots that sucker really hard. M7 has an apple root suck. It suckers really hard, whether you have anything grafted on it or not. Several figs, they sucker. Pomegranates, they're on their own roots. They sucker. So that's not the solution. Planting a tree on its own roots isn't the panacea that some people make it out to be. This is my soapbox slide. I just sort of throw it out there after I've already sort of got you. Air layered trees are on their own roots too, though. So it's the same deal. Okay. I talked a lot about this, and we're getting really close to the end, guys. So thanks for bearing with us. We're getting really close. So it'll be time to put the babies to bed here soon. So how to prevent your orchard from failing. So I take it as a sign, as a compliment, that I tend to get the calls from people as, someone's passed away and they're trying to save the orchard and all those sorts of things. So I see orchards failing a lot. Like, that's just the calls that I get from time to time. So in my years of seeing and doing this, you have to plan for the expected. You're going to take a vacation at some point in time. You're going to leave your property. You're going to not be able to hand water. You're going to have to, rely on someone else, something else to take care of your stuff, right? You also have to plan for the unexpected. A broken irrigation line is going to happen to you at some point in time. Unfortunately, it tends to happen right as we're about to go on vacation. But, a tree is going to fall. There's going to be a fire. A neighbor's going to do something that's going to kill something in your property. They're going to, overspray of some sort of Roundup or whatever. All those things are going to happen at some point. So plan the best that you can, for all those things. I would say, one of the biggest complaints that I had, we all love Jim and everything, but like one of my biggest complaints with Jim was he never did irrigation at his property. And that, that turned into, then his stuff ended up dying on him. When he became less mobile, his stuff died straight up. And, we started losing his genetic collection. And it's just because, putting in irrigation is a hard thing to do. It's not glamorous. It's not sexy. And it typically has to be done before you plant out the rest of your space. So, get your automatic irrigation in there. Proper pruning is like my #1 cultural practice. I've pruned a lot of trees. I have a good pruning handout, and I have pictures on it that show you why a heading cut is bad, because I see it all the time. Like, as soon as you make it, you cut off a stub cut, you see the death, disease, and decay entering into the main part of the tree and eventually going all the way to the trunk. So proper pruning is crucial. Labeling and stuff. If you have, we're CRFG. If you've got something that's worthwhile to save or preserve or whatever it is, you got to let other people know about it. Don't hoard it for yourself. Don't stroke your ego by, I have something that's so super rare or whatever it is. By all means, hype it up or whatever you want to do, but share it, get it out there, document it, and say, hey, this is why it's superlative, right? Be a little bit objective with that. Make it so that somebody like me or other people in CRFG could walk onto your property and they'll know that, like, okay, I need to preserve, the third persimmon tree that's next to the whatever thing it is, next to the, the hose bib or whatever. Like, get it out there so that we know what you want to preserve. With Jim Bathgate's property and stuff, North County, San Diego, he was known for his persimmons and stuff. But by the time I got to the property there's nothing to save. Everything had died at that point. So, because everything was in his head at that point. He wrote some things down 40 years ago, but nothing had been written down for 20 plus years. So, yeah, exactly. So you share, yeah, thanks for the comment there, Margaret. Exactly. Like, that's the whole point, is you share the material and then it can come back to you, because I'm going to share some news with you here in a minute. And I want some plant material to come back to me. So cool. Share the genetic material so it isn't lost. See, it's on my slide there too, Margaret. What do you know? Mini blinds are how I label stuff. I use pencil on both sides. It tends to last pretty well in the sun. And then the last bullet there is the one that I just sort of talked about, was with unfortunately with Jim, is that he just stopped writing things down. So please keep in touch. I do have my Suburban Food Farm Facebook page. I haven't been terribly active on that in a while for a variety of reasons. But I also do have a relatively new YouTube channel, Ben Kotnik. I don't have like the tons of followers and stuff, but I put out really good information. I think, it's all free. The only thing that I'm selling is education and knowledge and awareness and stuff. Eventually though, I have registered our new website, which is going to be Kotnik Farms. I don't have anything there just yet, but it'll be Kotnik Farms, and my email address is still the same. My phone number is still the same. And so we're going to be moving up to Nevada City. So let me just show you a couple quick pics. So here's the new place. We got a house, we got a barn, we got 2 ponds, and then there's a shared lake that's over here and stuff. And so this is going to be our new little, Kotnik Farms situation here on 10 acres. It's got a good amount of water. It's in Nevada City, California. And here's a couple pictures. Here's the front pasture. I just mowed this actually last week, a week or so ago when I was there. Here's a nice picture with the big oak trees and the barn and stuff. So Paul, if you're still on, this is how excited I am as I'm sharing all this stuff with my friends and colleagues here. Here I am on the 1953 Ferguson tractor mowing the front pasture. Here's Sarah and my son, doing their thing. There's the pond in the background. I'm taking this picture off of the roof of the barn. So that's sort of what's happening here. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the kind words there. So in wrap up though, I hope you learned something. Here's my contact info. So there's the email and there's my phone and stuff. So, that's not going to change. This website is now defunct, Suburban Food Farm. I didn't renew it, several months ago when it came due. So that's not there anymore. But the Facebook page is still there though, if you want to keep in touch that way and see some cool pictures. I have hundreds of pictures on the Facebook account, Suburban Food Farm. I think I do solve some problems in some fairly unique ways. And, I like to share the knowledge and information that others have shared with me, and I've added my own couple, twists on it and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and, that's essentially my talk. And I'm going to take a look at some of the chat there. Looks like, yep, my website is not working. You are right, Doug Young. I sort of just let that drop a while back there. Yep, I'm going to be working. I'm going to connect with Marta. I haven't, totally with her yet, but I plan to connect with Marta, and I'm connected with Brian, up in Northern California, so that'll be good. Yeah, that's definitely some mowing there. Cool. So Charlie, you have some pawpaw trees and stuff. That's so kind of you to offer that up. Thanks for your kind words, Chantal, and thanks, Kim. Thanks for joining us with Katie and stuff. I'm glad. Hey, thanks, Long and Sarah Lee. I appreciate your kind words there. And Amy's offering us some stuff. So anyway, cool.
Great job.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot to everybody for tuning in. I'm going to hang out for any questions. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, cheers to you too. But again, I want to just say, this is always interesting because here I am, the guy that has the microphone in front of me. So hopefully the guy with the microphone, the girl with the microphone is saying cool stuff, right? Mm-hmm. In this format right here, you guys all have a microphone too. It's just the chat function. So thanks for sharing your wisdom with us as well as things came up. I think I'm a pretty good generalist with a lot of this stuff. I don't go that deep into some of the fruits though. So thanks a lot for chiming in and helping out. And again, just want to give thanks to to John, who's picking up the torch from Ben Kossel. I just want to thank Ben and Kelsey Kossel. I don't think they're on the call here tonight, but I know how much work it is to lead this club and to lead it through some tough times and just getting volunteers involved and committed to the mission and being active is always a challenge. So. I really encourage you guys, when things get back to normal here or whatever the new version of normal that we want to create is, and of course we do have that opportunity, right? Please get involved in the club. California Rare Fruit Growers is a good organization. There are other good organizations too. So if you're already spread too thin, no problem. Keep doing those good things in the community that you're doing. But CRFG is a good organization and, it deserves your care and your attention. And thanks to John Rogers and others, that are carrying the torch forward. So, with that, I'll conclude the talk, and we can handle questions, or John can say a few words about whatever club business he may want to cover.
Yeah, great job, Ben. We really enjoyed it. You really covered everything, and as usual, enjoy. Can listen to you all day. But and thanks for all the help getting the program going, and Frank from Orange County too. This is the first go at this Zoom, and you guys helped pull it off. So we look forward to the next one. Yeah.
Hey, Biwa. Hi, Biwa. I always like seeing you. Thanks for coming out.
I'm gonna maybe open up a few microphones real quick if you got time, Ben. If not,
yeah,
I think
yeah, I'm good.
I don't know. It might be a little crazy. We got 49 people still out there.
Cool.
Let's see. Oop. Yep. All right. Remember, our San Diego chapter is going to have our fruit tree sale in October. We got a pretty good start. Monica's got some, and Nona's grafted up some rare varieties. she handpicked like 15 and said she had some pretty good results so far. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully in October, they'll be ready. Bob Holsinger brought some plants down. If the plants are half as good as Bob's knowledge, we're going to have a great sale. And Nevin, I don't know if he's still here. He showed up earlier, but he supplies incredible trees for our plant sale. So very unusual, always healthy. Yeah, it's really a great turnout and a great opportunity to get some unusual plants. Yeah. Other than that, yeah, just like Ben says, if you say plant or fruit and it makes you feel good inside, come join the California Rare Fruit. And that's just half of it, like Ben says. The people are even more amazing than what you learn and what you get from the group, the Scion Wood. I'm new at this, and I've got a crazy amount of trees starting just in 3 years thanks to this group. And help from Mike Oley. He's helped graft some things for me, and there's some wonderful, great people in this group. So if you're not a member of the club, there's a bunch of clubs out there. They're pretty easy to find, really easy to join up. So yeah, everybody, thanks for showing up. And I think we still have questions coming. I'm not sure if you can see them, Ben, or not.
No.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the chat. It's not really questions. It's really just, people are, just chiming in. And, I did appreciate, showing people the sort of the new property and all that stuff. And just full disclosure, Paul Weir, who's on this one, Paul is in the business of making dreams happen. Paul was our realtor. He was with us on a multi-year journey to find a dream property, and he's making that dream come true. And, really happy that, we're friends now through that whole process. So if, some of you making joking comments about wanting our property or whatever is, seriously, go talk to Paul. He can find you a property in Nevada County if you're interested.
wow, pretty cool.
We basically found, we needed to find water. We wanted to take some stuff to the next level. We looked all around Southern California and just, they're just, we didn't have the guarantee of water. So that was sort of a key driver for us exploring some other areas. And, after some exploration, we liked Nevada County. It's very ag friendly, and there's water available. So that's why we ended up there, and we're excited about this next chapter of our family situation.
What can you grow there, Ben? Can you grow everything, or is it?
Yeah, I'm gonna find out. Yeah, definitely. I'm already aware of the Felix Gillette Institute, so I'm gonna keep looking at that. Thanks for that recommendation. Yeah, I'm gonna grow figs, mulberries, apples, stone fruits. Not totally sure. I think I might be able to pull off some subtropicals, maybe a little bit. I'll probably have a greenhouse where I'll grow a couple mangoes and that stuff here and there. We'll see. But the plan is to plant out the majority of that front pasture that's about 3 or 4 acres eventually, and have that be something that's a little bit more commercially oriented. But I'm going to have to figure out, deer-proof fencing and a whole nother suite of problems, that are just going to, I have a new set of things to figure out. I've never done irrigation out of a pond, for example. So I need to figure out how that all works, versus, with pumps and, pressurizing tanks or whatever. But, I've always been generous, I think, with giving of my time and energy and knowledge and stuff. And I'm hopeful to be on the receiving end of some of that for the people that it's the result of the next years.
All right, Mark, we got some dragon fruit coming.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Well, I'm going to hang out. I'm going to finish my cold dinner though a little bit while we're here. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to talk for a little bit, and people can start dropping off. And John will send out something about the next month's program, and hopefully we can find somebody who's interested in doing an online presentation of That's Still the Way of the World next month.
Yeah, this Zoom, you're unlimited now. You can reach out, instead of just in San Diego, you can go across the world or whatever and bring somebody in and talk. So it's pretty exciting. I don't know if we'll get anybody as good as Ben, but we'll try. There's got to be somebody. Yeah.
Bye, Margaret. Mm-hmm. Bye, Margaret. Hope to meet you in person one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, Carol, the central canopy for humidity. So it was a modified central leader shape the modified central leader shape is like a lollipop, so like a big, like, circular treetop. And by keeping the canopy, reasonably full, you keep the moisture and the humidity inside the canopy of that tree. And so then what you're doing is you're prolonging the phases of the flowers, so the flowers last longer, which just means your chances for natural pollination. But a coastal valley is the best spot in Southern California, and it also doesn't get too hot. So that's what I meant there.
Thank you.
Oh,
Internet.
Carol, hopefully that explained things a little. No, I heard Carol there.
Thank you. Yes, and then I started having internet problems. So, but thanks. Yeah, that was really good presentation.
thanks for coming, joining us.
Yeah, I had a question for it. Just lost it. Maybe I'll come back to me.
Well, Mark, the answer is it depends.
Oh, I know what it was. When I logged on this evening, it wasn't as slick as the practice session. The other night, just clicked on the browser, I was able to get in. And tonight, I had to log in with password and email address. Was there a change?
We had the same problem, Mark. It took me 10 minutes to get in. It's like, oh no, we're not going to have a meeting, but my wife came in and helped me out. So or else we were in big trouble.
Is it a change on Zoom's end of it?
I don't know. It said practice the first time. Maybe they didn't have as high security on it or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. There's Zoom bombers. I don't know. I was kind of maybe hoping for one. Maybe add a little excitement. More excitement. Yeah. But
I use Zoom a lot for my job, and we never have passwords. And I'm not sure if requiring a password is what caused you to have to allow someone in. Just a thought.
So
because John initiated the password, then all of us had to follow suit then.
Maybe. They said Zoom was terrible though. You had to have passwords and this and everything, or else people are going to sneak in on your thing and disrupt it. So
well, if you're the host, you could always kick them off. And I believe once you kick them off, they cannot come back.
Oh. So
I've never had to experience that. Also, if you use Zoom in a business setting, you want to make sure you have the newest version of Zoom. They're coming out with security updates fairly often.
That's good to know.
Okay. Pretty cool.
Right.
Good presentation.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. It was fun. I appreciate all the kind words, and hopefully you got something out of it. Like I said, there, moving away doesn't mean going away. We have family in San Diego. We'll be back here in Southern California, and now you guys have a new fun place to come visit. So, let's be in touch. I appreciate it.
All right, Ben.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for attending. Hopefully. Yep. Thanks for everybody for attending, and hopefully next month we'll do the same thing. Have another nice talker. Bang, it's nice meeting you in person, or kinda.
Yeah, it's good to meet you.
And thanks for all the help with the emails and things. Very informative.
Yeah. If you need any science, I might have some.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, well, see you next month.
All right, sounds good. Take care.
You too.
Frank, thanks. Oh, let's see if we got Frank. Oh. All right, everybody. We're ending the meeting, so Have a good night.
Thank you.